Chapter 2456. Under the crushing power of the Eternity Chariot, whether it was the power of the underworld, the power of the cycle of life, or the boundless nether souls, they were all crushed to pieces. The supreme power of the Eternity Creation Divine Artifact was so domineering. The Lord of the Sky Wheel said in a voice full of shock and surprise, "That's the Eternity Creation Divine Artifact. Today, whoever dares to stop me will be killed. If gods block me, I'll kill gods. If demons block me, I'll kill demons. Lord of the Sky Wheel, if you dare to stop me, I'll kill you." Su Fang's domineering voice reverberated around the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Boom! Boom! The Eternity Chariot sped forward, crushing the storm and charging toward the sinking black substance above the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Su Fang certainly knew that the Lord of the Sky Wheel was able to control the yin-yang heavenly wheel and cut off the cycle of life and death. His strength must be extremely shocking, even surpassing that of an ordinary emperor master. The battle had just begun. However, Su Fang still charged forward without hesitation because his grandfather was on the black substance. Huang Lingyao followed closely behind Su Fang. Death energy lingered around her body, making her look like a death god. Obviously, she was also using her full strength. The reason was very simple. Her sister was on the black substance. This lord didn't misjudge you. You are qualified to be this lord's slave. Take out your full strength. Otherwise, you won't be able to save your family with the Eternity Chariot alone. The Lord of the Sky Wheel snorted coldly and put his palms together. In an instant, the yin-yang heavenly wheel erupted with an astonishing power of reincarnation. It turned into shadows and quickly condensed into a dozen wheels that were hundreds of meters in size. They looked like yin-yang heavenly wheels that had shrunk countless times. They carried a terrifying aura that could make all things in the world fall into the cycle of life and death as they rolled toward Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. Boom! Boom! The Eternity Chariot's power of time collided with the yin-yang heavenly wheel illusions, causing an earth-shaking explosion. The wheels shattered under the power of time and turned into nothingness. The Eternity Chariot was also forced to stop in the collision. The body of the chariot shook, and Su Fang was hit and spat out a mouthful of blood. Although the Universe River Chariot is extraordinary, how can it compare to my yin-yang heavenly wheel? The yin-yang heavenly wheel is a supreme divine artifact that controls the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. It can crush all divine artifacts. The Lord of the Sky Wheel snorted coldly and activated the yin-yang heavenly wheel again. More than a dozen yin-yang heavenly wheel phantoms whizzed over. Su Fang saw that the black substance that his grandfather's soul was in had sunk nearly 10,000 feet in just a short period of time. His heart sank as well. Life form. Divine Destruction Fist. Su Fang immediately transmitted his thoughts to the big goblin and experts inside the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. Swish. Swish. All the experts under his command channeled their power into the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda and merged it with Su Fang's divine body through the power of their natal magic treasures. In an instant, Su Fang's aura skyrocketed. His silver hair danced in the wind as he took a step forward. Then, he threw out a punch. Terrifying divine might that could destroy heaven and earth erupted. There was another huge collision. The yin-yang heavenly wheel phantoms shattered layer by layer under the power of the divine destruction fist. Su Fang was like an invincible god of death. He rushed to a distance of only 3,000 miles from the black substance in one breath. If they were in the natural world, Su Fang would only need a thought to teleport to the black substance within a distance of 3,000 miles. However, under the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel, the shackles were astonishing. Not to mention teleportation, even flying became extremely difficult. The distance of 3,000 miles seemed extremely long. After this battle, Su Fang's aura became much weaker. His body was covered in cracks and blood spurted out. He looked like he was bathed in blood. Extraordinary, really extraordinary. With the big goblin's body and the strength of a lower chief god, you can display strength that is not weaker than that of a venerable sovereign. Human, I'm becoming more and more interested in you. The Lord of the Sky Wheel laughed strangely and shook his arms. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless iron chains on the yin-yang heavenly wheel danced. Together with the souls shackled at the other end of the iron chains, it was like an octopus monster waving its tentacles. With a powerful power that shackled souls and screams that impacted souls, the chains swept toward Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. Yuan Li, you go and save them, Huang Lingyao suddenly said. Then she flew toward the chains that swept toward her. The nether moon above her head suddenly bloomed with thousands of bright and cold rays of light, erupting with the power of death that could freeze souls. In an instant, it condensed into a canopy in the sky. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the chains lashed at the canopy in the sky. The canopy trembled violently and shattered layer by layer, but it did not collapse. However, Huang Lingyao was also under great pressure. The chains lashed at the canopy in the sky as if they were lashing at her body. Her body trembled constantly, and her face was as pale as a dead person's. There was no trace of life in her eyes. Su Fang grabbed a handful of pills and swallowed them. Then, he burned his demon qi and pushed his body technique to the limit. Humph, although you're extraordinary, you're still an ant. How dare you defy my will? The Lord of the Sky Wheel sneered disdainfully. Then, he looked toward the spell altar below the yin-yang heavenly wheel and said in a voice full of killing intent, "Go, suppress this ant." Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More than 100 black-robed men teleported from the spell altar and blocked Su Fang's path. These black-robed men were not humans, nor were they living beings. Like the Lord of the Sky Wheel, they were a kind of strange primordial spirit. Although it was difficult to determine their strength, one could tell from their auras that the primordial spirit power of these black-robed men was at the level of a lord. QL11 Moreover, there were 9 black-robed men in the lead. Their primordial spirit power was at the level of an upper-rank lord. Although they were not at the peak, they were not far from it. All of them are primordial spirits. The big goblin's remarkable abilities are useless against them. It looks like I can only appear in my true form. Kill. Su Fang had been paying attention to his grandfather's soul with a strand of his consciousness. He discovered that the black substance was only 50,000 feet away from the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Moreover, the speed at which it was sinking had increased significantly. At this moment, Su Fang could no longer be bothered to hide anything. He let out a fierce howl filled with murderous intent. His body immediately transformed from the big goblin's divine arms spirit monkey form into a young man of 17 or 18 years old. Su Fang. The big goblin Yuan Li is actually Su Fang? There was a loud boom in Huang Lingyao's head. It was as if thunder had struck. She did not expect this. She had never imagined that the big goblin Yuan Li would actually be Su Fang. The man who had once made her gnash her teeth in hatred but whom she could never forget had been by her side for such a long time without her noticing at all. Of course, this was not because Huang Lingyao was not sharp enough. It was because she had obtained Emperor Ming Yu's inheritance and cultivated a death Tao. She had become somewhat numb and had gradually become like a living dead. If this had been in the past, given her shrewdness, she would have noticed some clues long ago. Su Fang, that damned B** starred. I can't believe he's been toying with me all this time. Huang Lingyao's pale face flushed when she thought of the various experiences she had with the big goblin Yuan Li during this period of time, especially when he had claimed to be Su Fang's Tao companion. Her eyes were filled with anger, as well as a hint of embarrassment. In the blink of an eye, over 100 black-clothed men unleashed the power of their primordial spirits at the same time. Some were primordial spirit sword qi, some were primordial spirit fist techniques, and some were primordial spirit sword qi. They swept towards Su Fang like a surging wave. There was also a black-clothed man who was the strongest. He condensed more than a dozen primordial spirit sword chi, which turned into a primordial spirit sword formation that was more than 1,000 feet long. With surging primordial spirit sword chi, he charged towards Su Fang with a shout. It was truly astonishing. It could probably even kill a peak-over god. It could even threaten a supreme emperor. A bunch of them? Gu Mingye waving her fierce arrows? Mei Huan? Mei Huan. Su Fang quickly condensed a seal and absorbed the yin and yang dharma power. A terrifying halo of sword chi rose against the surging primordial spirit sword chi and erupted in an instant. Boom! Su Fang's halo of primordial spirit sword chi and the primordial spirit sword formation that was comparable to a peak over god's primordial spirit sword formation shattered at the same time. The black-clothed men next to him were also affected. Suddenly Su Fang flipped his right hand and a broken black book appeared in his palm. The Prison Suppression Codex. Although the Prison Suppression Codex was not a primordial spirit treasure, it was a heaven law divine weapon after all. Since it could shackle a supreme emperor, it naturally possessed powerful primordial spirit shackles. The book opened and a black Xian Guang was released from its pages. It immediately enveloped over 100 black-clothed men. The black-clothed men unleashed their primordial spirit might in a frenzy in an attempt to resist the Prison Suppression Codex's shackles. However, the Heaven Law divine weapon was extremely powerful. These black-clothed men were not at the level of a supreme emperor after all. In the end, apart from the 9 upper-rank overgods who broke down their bodies and turned into primordial spirits that luckily escaped the shackles, the other 100 or so black-clothed men were all sucked into the Prison Suppression Codex. Boom! 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 Su Fang strode forward with an unstoppable momentum, borrowing the Prison Suppression Codex's powerful primordial spirit might. The 9 black-clothed men who had luckily escaped reformed their bodies. They clearly looked much more blurry now. They no longer dared to approach the Prison Suppression Codex's primordial spirit might. When Huang Lingyao saw this, he followed closely behind Su Fang. The two of them charged towards the black substance. Human, you're finally qualified to fight with me personally. The Sky Wheel Lord laughed maniacally. His body swayed and turned into nothingness. In an instant, he appeared in front of Su Fang and unleashed an astonishing primordial spirit might. At the same time, he activated the power of the heavenly wheel of yin-yang and charged towards Su Fang with a crushing force. What a powerful primordial spirit attack! Coupled with the power of the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, he can crush an ordinary supreme emperor. However, he seems to be much weaker than the Sky Wheel Lord I imagined. Su Fang was shocked at first, but he soon felt a little confused. After the second primordial spirit merged with the primordial spirit of the original body, Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability, the Charm God Soul Absorption Seal. The primordial spirit might gushed out of his divine aperture and erupted from his glabella, forming an astonishing primordial spirit devouring vortex. Chapter 2457. The Second Primordial Spirit. After many transformations, especially after integrating a lot of soul marrow milk not long ago, the power of the second primordial spirit was comparable to that of an ordinary Emperor Master. QL11 at this time, when it was integrated with the original primordial spirit, the primordial spirit magic of Night Demon could crush an ordinary Emperor Master. In addition, the Lord of Sky Wheel was also careless. He did not expect that Su Fang, a Path Integration Realm cultivator, would suddenly burst out with such a terrifying power of the primordial spirit and suffer a great loss. As the Lord of Sky Wheel's primordial spirit became precarious, the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel he activated also collapsed in an instant. Seeing that the Lord of Sky Wheel was about to be swallowed by Su Fang's primordial spirit, his primordial spirit suddenly split, and nearly 1/5 of it was twisted and swallowed by Su Fang's primordial spirit vortex. The remaining part of the Lord of Sky Wheel's body took the opportunity to get rid of Su Fang's primordial spirit devouring power. In a flash, he escaped the attack range of Su Fang's primordial spirit and then activated the yin-yang heavenly wheel again. Boom, boom, boom. As the heavenly wheel rotated, it immediately formed a powerful defensive boundary around it, isolating Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. In a flash, Su Fang seriously injured the Lord of Sky Wheel. Huang Lingyao did not even have time to react. Suddenly, a monstrous wave of shock set off in her heart, and she looked at Su Fang in disbelief. Since Huang Lingyao obtained the inheritance of Emperor Mingyu, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds. From a weak chicken that was at the mercy of others, she had become a peerless master who could compete with a king god in a short time. She also established her own force, the Xianming divine religion, and made a name for herself in the dark world in a short time. However, Huang Lingyao also paid a heavy price for this. Because she cultivated the divine arts and magic of Emperor Mingyu, she gradually lost her life and would eventually become a living dead. However, Huang Lingyao thought that everything was worth it. After becoming a master, her greatest wish was to find Su Fang one day, defeat him completely, and humiliate him. Unexpectedly, Su Fang's current strength had far exceeded Huang Lingyao's imagination. She still needed to look up to him. At this time, the impact on Huang Lingyao's heart could be imagined. Charm God Soul Assimilating Seal. Human Cultivator, how did you master Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability? Separated by the bounded domain, the Lord of Sky Wheel stared at Su Fang with a look of disbelief. You know Night Demon too? Su Fang smiled coldly. Then, he shouted in a domineering manner, You possess such a powerful primordial spirit divine might, and you are even in the form of a primordial spirit. You should be related to Night Demon. I don't care who you are, release my family quickly, or you won't be able to escape death today. You want to save your family. The Sky Wheel Master's eyes were cold, and his divine light swept the black substance. The souls of Su Fang's grandfather and Shui Wuing, together with the black substance below, suddenly accelerated their descent. Huang Lingyao shouted sternly, Sky Wheel Master, how dare you? Su Fangda stepped out. As he ran, his body rapidly grew in reverse. Golden electric currents flowed on his body. After a dozen steps, he turned into a huge golden giant. Break for me! Su Fang suddenly punched out. His fist quickly became bigger, and with a kind of terrifying power that could shatter the world, it fiercely bombarded the bounded domain. Boom! It felt that the whole 9 serenities was shaking, and the bounded domain shook violently. However, the power of reincarnation quickly operated, and the bounded domain quickly returned to its original state. Su Fang was shaken by the power of reincarnation in the bounded domain and flew backward for more than 10 miles. The golden cloak on his body was broken, and the mysterious golden divine patterns on his skin were also broken. What a powerful bounded domain! Su Fang returned to his normal state, and his eyebrows suddenly furrowed. The Sky Wheel Master was first shocked by Su Fang's giant diamond body, but then he sneered disdainfully. This bounded domain is the condensation of the power of the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. The reincarnation of life and death is endless. Unless you have the strength to break the heavenly wheel of yin-yang with one blow, which is at least a peerless divine ability performed by a powerful Emperor Master, you can't break the bounded domain and save your family. Su Fang, think of a way, or it will be too late. Huang Lingyao looked at the sinking black substance, which was only a little more than 10,000 feet away from the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, and suddenly became very anxious. It seems that I have to use my trump card. Su Fang's eyes flashed with ruthlessness and decisiveness. Although he vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the Sky Wheel Master, in such a critical situation, he could only fight with all his strength. Otherwise, his grandfather's soul would be devoured by the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, and he would be doomed eternally. When his grandfather died, Su Fang was still very weak, and it was difficult for him to change anything. This matter had become a sore point for Su Fang, and he always took it to heart. At this time, if he watched his grandfather's soul completely disappear in front of his eyes, Su Fang would never forgive himself in this life. Azi. Su Fang transmitted his thoughts to the purple Chi Dharma spirit, original spirit, Azi. At the same time, with a flip of his right hand, the origin sacred mirror appeared in the palm of his hand. The mysterious purple Chi rushed out, and a kind of supreme divine power that used heaven and earth as a tool and controlled heaven and earth instantly penetrated the divine world and shrouded the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The heavenly wheel of yin-yang began to tremble violently, as if it had encountered something that frightened it, and it kept struggling. Even the boundless vortex formed by countless underworld souls in the sky was shaking violently, and the countless chains on the heavenly wheel of yin-yang were waving uncontrollably, looking very terrifying. The powerful enchantment released by the heavenly wheel of yin-yang was also weakened by more than half. After the transformation, the purple Chi Dharma spirit was so powerful, and the power it released to control magic treasures could even suppress the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, which maintained the cycle of life and death. The next moment, Su Fang activated the power of the nine yang, and it erupted like a torrential flood. In the central spacetime of the mirror, Shu Wanzhen's power of the nine yin also poured in endlessly, converging in the central spacetime. Su Fang's yang spirit and Shu Wanzhen used the yin-yang transformation at the same time. It was the yin-yang transformation, not the four divisions transformation. The yin-yang transformation represented destruction, and it allowed all things in the world and all laws to return to their original state. The four divisions transformation was not only destruction, but also reconstruction. At this time, Su Fang was in a hurry, and he only wanted to break the enchantment to save his grandfather's soul. Naturally, he used the yin-yang transformation. Under the joint efforts of Su Fang and Shu Wanzhen, the terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth was once again displayed. The power of the nine yang and nine yin collided and then merged, and a kind of power that could split heaven and earth, and the evolution of heaven and earth, suddenly burst out. Under the supreme power of the origin sacred mirror, the heavenly wheel of yin-yang trembled and buzzed, and the enchantment collapsed layer by layer, returning to its original state. What kind of divine artifact is this? It is so powerful, and it even surpasses my heavenly wheel of yin-yang. Impossible, how can there be such a powerful divine artifact in the world? You are just a Tao integration realm ant. How can you use such a divine artifact? While the Lord of Tianluan was still in shock, he was swept away by the Hunyuan divine mirror's power. His Yuan Shun body disintegrated and turned into an empty Yuan Shun. In the end, it turned into a strand of innate chaos chi that was sucked into the Hunyuan divine mirror. Su Fang staggered as his aura suddenly weakened. Activating the primordial divine mirror to use the yin-yang transformation had consumed an astonishing amount of energy. Although it wasn't as if he had completely lost his combat strength after using it once, it was still a bit too much for him to bear. He put away the origin sacred mirror and the prison suppressing codex, and before the power of the yin-yang transformation dissipated completely, he rushed towards the black substance like a shooting star. Huang Lingyao suppressed the shock in his heart, and used all his strength to follow Su Fang. At this time, the black substance was only 1,000 feet away from the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, and it was sinking at an astonishing speed. Under the power of the heavenly wheel of yin-yang, the edges of the black substance were breaking and melting, and the souls of Su Fang's grandfather and Shui Wuying became even more blurred. Grandfather! Su Fang landed on the substance, and when he saw his grandfather's shadow, his heart trembled. Pain, joy, guilt, excitement, all kinds of emotions messed up Su Fang's Tao heart. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He released the power of his Yuan Shun, and carefully enveloped his grandfather's soul, and kept it in his divine aperture. Then, he sucked his grandfather's soul into the internal space of the ancestral demon blood plate, separated a yang spirit, and slowly nourished it with a drop of soul marrow milk diluted with spiritual water. I've finally saved my grandfather. Su Fang could finally put down the huge rock that had been hanging high in his heart. Huang Lingyao also flew to the black substance, and when he saw Shui Wuying's soul, tears fell like rain. Sister, quickly keep your soul and leave this place quickly. Su Fang calmed down and coldly shouted at Huang Lingyao. Huang Lingyao woke up a little, and hurriedly used the power of his Yuan Shun, carefully wrapped Shui Wuying's soul, and kept it in his divine aperture. Then, the two quickly flew away from the black substance, and broke away from the shackles of the heavenly wheel of Yin Yang. The black substance fell into the eye of the heavenly wheel of Yin Yang, and was crushed to pieces. Su Fang, give me some soul marrow milk. Huang Lingyao asked Su Fang for some soul marrow milk, and his tone was full of pleading. Back then in the great world, you killed your sister Shui Wuying for the sake of Yunxiao's thunder sword, and for the sake of walking to the peak of the experts. Why are you saving your sister's soul now? Huang Lingyao's eyes revealed a painful expression, and then he slowly opened his mouth. Back then in the sky's sacred ground, you gave me a head-on warning, and I realized how wrong I was back then. In the Golden Rainbow King World's disillusionment heart-killing mirror, I saw my inner demon again. All these years I've been suffering every moment. I know that if I don't get rid of my inner demon and resolve the knot in my heart, even if I become a supreme sovereign in the future, I won't be able to escape from this heart-killing pain and torture. Therefore, I came to the 9 underworlds with a glimmer of hope, hoping to find my sister's soul, to wash away my sins, and to resolve my inner demon. Huang Lingyao's words made Su Fang sigh in his heart. If he knew this would happen, why did he do it in the first place? Here's the soul marrow milk. Su Fang flipped his hand and took out a treasure bottle containing the soul marrow milk, and was about to give some to Huang Lingyao, who knew in the next moment, a sudden change occurred. Rumble. Chapter 2458. Unexpectedly, Su Fang rescued his grandfather's soul. When he thought that everything was calm, there was another sudden change. Yin and Yang are in disorder, reincarnation is reversed. A cold and indifferent voice echoed from all directions. It was the Lord of Heavenly Wheel. Huang Lingyao's expression changed instantly. The Lord of Heavenly Wheel is not dead? Su Fang's eyebrows twisted. My previous suspicion was right. The Lord of Heavenly Wheel is not so easy to kill. The one that was killed by my yin-yang change must be his primordial spirit doppelganger. Otherwise it would not be so weak. As soon as the Lord of Heavenly Wheel finished speaking, the yin-yang heavenly wheel rumbled and rotated. Countless nether souls in the sky gathered into a torrent and were sucked into the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Then, the yin-yang heavenly wheel broke out a kind of chaotic and inverted reincarnation of yin and yang, enveloping Su Fang and Huang Lingyao. In an instant, Su Fang felt that a kind of power of reincarnation of life and death was added to his body, confusing yin and yang and inverting reincarnation. Such power was more than 10 times stronger than the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel before. Obviously, it was activated to the extreme by the Lord of Heavenly Wheel. Su Fang and Huang Lingyao's life aura suddenly became incomparably majestic in the power of the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The next moment it fell from the peak of life to the abyss of death. Their bodies withered in an instant, and their life aura also became sluggish. My fate is in my own control. I, Su Fang, have surpassed the way of heaven. Even the way of heaven can't reincarnate me. Fate is in control of the way of heaven. If I want to live, the way of heaven can't take it away. Fate is in control of the way of heaven. If I live forever, I will never die. Divine life shrinking skill. It had been a long time since he really activated the divine life shrinking skill. A kind of power that could defy the way of heaven and change one's own fate blocked the power of Su Fang and the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The terrifying power of confusing yin and yang and inverting reincarnation also lost its effect on Su Fang. Using the Heaven's Secret Life shrinking technique also made Su Fang pay a heavy price. In this instant, Su Fang's HP had been reduced by nearly a third. Coupled with the life aura that had been taken away by the yin-yang heavenly wheel, Su Fang instantly aged. His current appearance was close to 40 years old. His flesh and blood had dried up, making him look extremely terrifying. Huang Lingyao had obtained the inheritance of Emperor Mingyu, and his divine body had lost most of its vitality. Therefore, the damage he received from the yin-yang heavenly wheel was much less than that of Su Fang. However, the death qi that permeated his body had become denser. Her eyes suddenly flashed with a dim light of nothingness. Soon after, she revealed a painful and struggling expression as her entire body trembled violently. Su Fang asked, "Huang Lingyao, what's the matter?" Suddenly Su Fang felt his grandfather's soul inside the space inside the ancestral devil blood plate shudder inexplicably. Something is not right. Su Fang's heart suddenly sank as he realized that the problem was somewhat serious. Since the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel was not dead, how could he have saved his grandfather's soul so easily? There was no time to think about it for the time being. Su Fang hurriedly activated the ancestral devil blood plate with a strand of primordial spirit divine power to seal and protect his grandfather's soul. At this time, the terrifying power released by the yin-yang heavenly wheel disappeared, and Huang Lingyao also looked normal. A black light flashed out of nothingness, like a lamp that was about to go out. There was an illusory figure floating in the middle of the dim light. Night Demon? Su Fang was shocked. Only now did he realize that the so-called Lord of the Heavenly Wheel was actually Night Demon, whom he had not seen for a long time. From the small world to the big world, Su Fang and Night Demon had crossed swords several times. His second primordial spirit was also cultivated by seizing Night Demon's consciousness in the big world. Naturally, he was no stranger to Night Demon. He did not expect to encounter another Night Demon in the myriad worlds, and it was so powerful. But thinking about it carefully, it was not strange that the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel was Night Demon. Night demons needed to constantly devour the primordial spirits and life essence of living beings in order to grow stronger. The yin-yang heavenly wheel was the place where souls reincarnated and yin and yang reincarnated. After countless souls fell into the reincarnation cycle, they would all come to the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The Lord of the Heavenly Wheel occupied the yin-yang heavenly wheel, blocked the reincarnation cycle, and devoured souls to cultivate. Only night demons could do that. Night Demon is really haunting me. Looking at Night Demon, although Su Fang was dispirited, he had to be 120% alert to deal with it. Night Demon's illusory figure quickly condensed from nothingness into a middle-aged man in a black robe. He had a square face, a pale face, and a dim light burning in his eyes. Night Demon looked at Su Fang with a disdainful attitude and said in a cold and embarrassed voice that made souls tremble, "This lord was not wrong. You are indeed extraordinary. Not only do you have the universe chariot, the prison-suppressing codex, and a supreme magic treasure that surpasses the yin-yang heavenly wheel, but you have also mastered the supreme primordial spirit divine ability of my Night Demon clan. I originally planned to subdue you with my doppelganger, but I did not expect you to be so extraordinary that you are qualified to make this lord take action personally." With a faint sigh, Night Demon continued, "Human, submit to this lord, and this lord will grant you eternal life and coexist with the universe. Also, when this lord conquers the myriad worlds, I will grant you supreme power." Su Fang snorted disdainfully. A frog at the bottom of a well that only dares to hide in the 9 serenities, a mouse that cannot see the light, wants to conquer the myriad worlds in vain? This lord is so powerful that an ant like you can't imagine it. You cannot resist this lord's will. Your fate is sealed. You can only be this lord's slave. Night Demon inexplicably snorted, and looked at Su Fang with contempt. A dim light flashed in her eyes. A shocking primordial spirit divine might instantly attacked Su Fang's divine aperture, shaking its defenses and causing Su Fang's magic power world to tremble. Su Fang's yang spirit activated the ancestral devil blood plate and released the primordial spirit divine might, causing his divine aperture to quickly stabilize and dissolve Night Demon's primordial spirit attack. Night Demon suddenly revealed a strange smile. Su Fang's heart skipped a beat. The heavenly secret life shrinking technique and the heavenly secret mysterious scripture flickered rapidly in the depths of his mind at the same time, indicating to Su Fang that a fatal crisis was about to befall him. Su Fang subconsciously operated the power of the yin-yang world, which surged out from his body and formed a defense around his divine body. Who knew just as the defense was formed, a white Xian Guang suddenly lit up behind Su Fang. It was filled with the power of death and coldness and ruthlessly slashed at Su Fang's back. Qi. Su Fang's defense, which had not yet stabilized, was torn apart. Then, it was his physical defense. The skin and muscles on his back tore open. A gust of Yin underworld energy fiercely attacked Su Fang's heart and recklessly surged inside his body, robbing him of his life force. Su Fang was like a sack that had been ruthlessly thrown out. His body flew for thousands of feet before coming to a stop. A shocking wound had been torn open on his back. If not for the black lotus blood thread that had pierced through his body, this attack would have split him in half. QL11 blood gushed out from the wound. Then, it was quickly corroded by the Yin underworld energy that had invaded his body. He lost his life force and was filled with a strong aura of death. That fierce and cold aura crazily destroyed his body. His entire body seemed to be sealed in ice, and his life force was rapidly draining away. In the end, the most serious injury was his heart. It was almost completely corroded by the Yin underworld energy. The heart was the origin of life. Su Fang's heart was so severely injured that it almost took away half of his life. Su Fang turned his head with difficulty and looked at Huang Lingyao. "It's you. Why did you sneak attack me?" The one who had sneak attacked Su Fang was none other than Huang Lingyao. She took advantage of the time when Su Fang and Night Demon's primordial spirits were fighting to activate the nether moon and gave Su Fang a fatal blow. Huang Lingyao stared coldly at Su Fang, as if she was an ice-cold puppet. Night Demon's voice was filled with killing intent. "Shackle him and give me the soul marrow nether milk." Huang Lingyao floated in front of Su Fang like a ghost that had lost its soul. Su Fang suddenly understood. Possession. It's Shui Wuying's soul. Night Demon's primordial spirit and consciousness were hidden in it. Huang Lingyao took it into her divine aperture and seized her body when she was unprepared. This Night Demon is actually so cunning. No wonder we could save her soul so easily. She actually had such a hidden scheme. At the same time, Su Fang was also shocked by Night Demon's divine ability. The soul was extremely fragile, but Night Demon could actually do something to Shui Wuying's soul. It could be seen how amazing her divine ability was. Then, Su Fang's heart suddenly sank again, and his whole body was oozing with coldness. If Shui Wuying's soul was problematic, then Night Demon must have also done something to his grandfather's soul. Fortunately, Su Fang had the ancestor devil blood plate, which isolated the primordial spirit connection between his grandfather's soul and Night Demon's primordial spirit. Otherwise, he would not be able to escape the fate of being seized like Huang Lingyao. What worried Su Fang was whether Night Demon's tampering in his grandfather's soul would cause irreparable damage to his grandfather's soul. If that was the case, the consequences would be quite serious. However, Su Fang could not afford to be distracted now. He was in a seriously injured state, and he also had to face the seized Huang Lingyao and the strange and incomparably powerful Night Demon. He hurriedly operated the power of the 9 suns to refine the underworld Yin energy that had invaded his body. At the same time, he urged the blood in his body to run crazily to repair the great damage to his body and heart. Previously, he had used the Heaven's secret life shrinking technique, which had consumed a lot of his life force. Now it was one disaster after another. Although he did not age, his life force was extremely weak. In such a state, let alone fighting, even speaking was very difficult. If it was not for the power released by the yin-yang heavenly wheel, he would not be able to fly at all. At this time, Su Fang had lost all power except for his primordial spirit. He was like a pig that could be slaughtered at any time. Huang Lingyao flew to Su Fang's side and looked at Su Fang with cold and dull eyes. With the power of his primordial spirit, Su Fang shouted in Huang Lingyao's mind, "Huang Lingyao, have you forgotten your sister? You are Huang Lingyao, the vicious and merciless Huang Lingyao. How can you be willing to be controlled by others? Your sister, Shui Wuing, still needs you to save her. How can you be willing to become Night Demon's puppet?" In a short period of time, it was impossible for Night Demon to completely seize Huang Lingyao's body. At most, Night Demon could only control him temporarily. Therefore, Su Fang tried to wake Huang Lingyao up. Huang Lingyao. Chapter 2459. Su Fang's thunderous roar shook Huang Lingyao's divine aperture. Her primordial spirit, which was controlled by Night Demon, began to struggle violently. Bang! Huang Lingyao's eyes were no longer confused and sluggish. Suddenly, a cold and dead light burst out from her eyes. "I am Huang Lingyao. No one can control me." Night Demon was surprised. Interesting. The successor of the divine tribe of Dark Underworld is also so extraordinary. Her Taoist heart is so firm. It is beyond my expectation. However, do you think it will be so easy to get rid of my control? Night Demon's gloomy eyes surged. Huang Lingyao's body trembled violently. Her face turned pale and distorted. Obviously, she was having a life-and-death battle with Night Demon in her spiritual world. Swoosh! A black xianguang shot out from between Su Fang's eyebrows. It was Su Fang's second primordial spirit. While Night Demon was trying to control Huang Lingyao, Su Fang released his second primordial spirit. Monstrous waves of primordial spirit burst out and rolled towards Night Demon. Second primordial spirit? You human ant, you have cultivated a second primordial spirit with the magical power of my Night Demon tribe. Moreover, the power of your primordial spirit is so strong, it seems that I can't keep you alive. At this moment, Night Demon finally became serious. He revealed a fierce killing intent. Astonishing primordial spirit power gushed out from his black robe and started to fight with the second primordial spirit. Boom! 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 The collision of primordial spirit power caused a silent collision. Although there was no earth-shattering momentum, it was more thrilling than the collision of magical powers. Huang Lingyao's pressure did not decrease. Instead, it increased. Night Demon's primordial spirit that invaded her divine aperture began to display its primordial spirit power, trying to regain control of her. Night Demon's idea was very simple. As long as he could control Huang Lingyao and kill Su Fang's physical body, Su Fang's second primordial spirit would not be a threat to him. Under Night Demon's frenzied Yuan spirit attacks, Huang Lingyao's eyes once again became lifeless, flashing with a dim light like Night Demon's. The nether moon above her head was also trembling and humming, releasing a pale white chilling light that seemed to materialize as it slowly flew towards Su Fang. Su Fang's original body was currently in a heavily injured state and had no defensive ability at all. It was now very dangerous. Su Fang was about to look up at the sky. Is it really worth it? Coward? Shepherd? Moo into a shrimp. Hua frozen, wui you? Wei? Angry face? Disdaining Ji Jin? What? Mu Yao in the E accent? Crippled Pingua? Iridium weariness between her eyebrows, a crack suddenly appeared. The nether moon that was flying towards Su Fang flew back with a whoosh, quickly turned into an illusory moonlight, and drilled into Huang Lingyao's spiritual power world through the crack between her eyebrows. Then, a breath of death spread out from Huang Lingyao's body. This breath of death was incomparably pure, without a trace of evil. Instead, it contained a kind of sacred breath. Huang Lingyao's breath of life also quickly turned into a cold breath of death, and a kind of great Tao of death lingered around her body. Death meant the end of life, but it did not mean evil. At the same time, it also meant the beginning of a new life. This was the reincarnation of the heavenly Tao. Not only was it not evil, but it was also an extremely sacred thing. At this moment, Huang Lingyao, in a critical moment, actually merged a horn of the Nether Moon Emperor with her divine body. QL11. This also meant that Huang Lingyao had fallen into the great Tao of death from now on. She was no longer a human, but a Nether divine clan, and at the same time, a lifeless living dead. Ever since she obtained the horn of the Nether Moon Emperor in the Golden Rainbow King world, and obtained the inheritance from it, she had cultivated the great Tao of death of the Nether divine clan, but she had never merged the horn of the Nether Moon Emperor with her divine body. That was because there was still a heart demon in her heart that had not been removed. Her heart demon was not only her sister Shui Wuying, but also Su Fang. Night Demon was a little panicked and shouted loudly, "You are a human. Once you fall into the great Tao of death, it means that you will completely disappear from now on, and it will be difficult for you to reincarnate. Stop." Huang Lingyao showed a cold smile. "My sister's soul has been destroyed by you, and now you are still trying to control me. Even if I die, I, Huang Lingyao, will never become a puppet controlled by you." The next moment, a gray Xian Guang burst out from the divine aperture, and instantly engulfed her whole body. A cold force of death immediately wiped out Night Demon's primordial spirit consciousness. Night Demon's original body was also injured, and she roared in anger and pain. Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fang, and her cold eyes contained the last trace of emotion. "Su Fang, I have always hated you, but I am also grateful to you. I hate you for taking everything from me, including my body, but I can't help but be grateful to you for the warning you gave me in the great world, the cloud heaven's sacred ground, and let me know the meaning of life. If I can start over again, I am willing to give up everything, give up the greed for power, and cherish the kinship with my sister. If possible, I also want to find a man and have a vigorous love of life and death. Finally, the only man in my life." Speaking until here, Huang Lingyao's eyes became deathly still, and there was no longer a trace of human emotion in her. There was no trace of life in her body, and she was no different from a dead person who had lost her life. However, the aura of death emitted from her body was incomparably strong. Huang Lingyao had fallen into the path of death. From now on, Huang Lingyao no longer existed in this world, and there was now an expert of the divine underworld race. Su Fang sighed in his heart, and for a moment, his heart was filled with mixed feelings. There was both sorrow and indescribable pain. Huang Lingyao looked at Night Demon and formed a seal. Her primordial spirit's divine power, which was filled with cold aura of death and fierce murderous intent, spread out from her divine aperture, and condensed into an illusory nether moon, which attacked Night Demon. Su Fang's second primordial spirit displayed its divine power, and condensed into a shocking primordial spirit vortex, which also erupted with a shocking primordial spirit devouring power, and swept towards Night Demon. Su Fang's original body swallowed elixirs, spiritual items, and blood crystals to recover from the huge injuries on his body. Because his injuries were too serious, Su Fang could no longer use the blue sky underworld. Instead, he tore open his chest and directly merged the elixirs, spiritual items, and blood crystals into his heart and blood. At the same time, he also activated the dragon-subduing true body, the Black Lotus true body, and other recovery abilities, and used all his methods to recover his injuries. At the same time, he was no longer stingy with the soul marrow milk. With the powerful ability of the soul marrow milk to nourish the soul, he quickly recovered his primordial spirit. The dragon bird also nourished the essence of the sun in the palace of heaven and earth, helping Su Fang to recover his yang qi. Prehistoric inflammation also stripped the fire essence from his body and was absorbed by his yang meridian. As his yang qi became majestic again, the divine power of pure yang swept through his body, refining the power of the underworld. At the same time, it also brought a shocking amount of vitality to his body. Su Fang was injured by Huang Lingyao's sneak attack this time. If it were any other cultivator, even those peerless sovereigns, even if they did not die on the spot, they would have to go into seclusion for tens of millions of years before they could barely escape death. And Su Fang was just that extraordinary. His perfect physique and various true bodies built on the foundation of his perfect physique, coupled with the unparalleled yang qi from cultivating the 9 changes of the 9 suns, allowed him to recover on his own even when he was on the verge of death. While recovering, Su Fang paid attention to the battle over there. He had no intention of releasing the experts under his command. Although the big goblin and gods under his command were full of experts, and it was not like he did not have any top experts comparable to peak sovereigns. However, he was currently facing the terrifying night demon in a battle of the primordial spirit. When the power of the primordial spirit reached the level of a venerable sovereign, the experts under his command were useless. Su Fang had no intention of using the ancestral fiend blood plate for the time being. At this moment, Night Demon clearly had not unleashed her full strength. Some of her powerful primordial spirit abilities had not been used yet. Su Fang had no choice but to keep the ancestral fiend blood plate as his final trump card. The powerful primordial spirit of the second primordial spirit clashed with Night Demon, and the two were actually evenly matched. After Huang Lingyao fell into the path of death, her primordial spirit's power contained the power to freeze the primordial spirit. It could also cause the primordial spirit to lose its self-awareness. Although her primordial spirit's power was far inferior to Su Fang's second primordial spirit, it still posed a considerable threat to Night Demon. Night Demon was finally enraged. My divine ability has not reached the great perfection stage. I originally did not want to use the peerless primordial spirit divine ability of my Night Demon clan. But you 2 ants forced me to use my full strength. I will place your souls in the heavenly wheel of yin-yang and repeatedly suffer the pain of reincarnation. Soul-shattering thunderous roar. As soon as Night Demon's voice fell, the primordial spirit's roar sounded like heaven-defying thunder. Rumble. The silent thunder shattered the primordial spirit whirlpool of the second primordial spirit, and the black mark that the second primordial spirit resided in was sent flying. The black primordial spirit's lightning wrapped around the mark, and after a series of chaotic flashes, cracks appeared on the mark. The second primordial spirit that resided in it was also severely injured. The black lightning swept across and shattered Huang Lingyao's nether moon. Huang Lingyao let out a muffled groan and staggered. Her primordial spirit was also severely injured. Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability, that was similar to the thunder technique, was actually so powerful. Su Fang's original body suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a look of horror in his eyes. The power of Night Demon's primordial spirit divine ability was really incredible. It was beyond Su Fang's expectations. How can a precious treasure like the soul marrow milk be wasted by an ant like you? Bring me the primordial spirit divine spear. Night Demon looked at Su Fang, and a dim light flashed in her eyes. A divine shadow of the primordial spirit shot out and quickly condensed into a primordial spirit divine spear. In an instant it crossed the distance between them and arrived in front of Su Fang's head. The primordial spirit divine spear emitted extremely fierce primordial spirit power. Even if it was a venerable emperor, his divine aperture would be pierced through, and his primordial spirit and magic power world would be destroyed. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed, and a black disk flew out from Su Fang's divine aperture and blocked the primordial spirit divine spear. Boom! The two powerful primordial spirit divine powers collided, and the primordial spirit divine waves surged in both directions. The powerful primordial spirit divine spear that Night Demon had used was shattered by the black disk, and finally shattered completely. Chapter 2460. Su Fong cultivated the undying soul codex, so his primordial spirit was extraordinary. Moreover, there was a peerless primordial spirit in the depths of his divine aperture, the ancestral fiend blood plate. After Su Fong merged with the ancestral fiend blood plate, it sat in the depths of Su Fong's divine aperture ocean and connected with his primordial spirit. Just as Night Demon's primordial spirit spear was about to pierce Su Fong's divine aperture, Su Fong's yang spirit felt threatened and prompted the ancestral fiend blood plate to erupt with boundless primordial spirit power. It flew out of the divine aperture and shattered Night Demon's primordial spirit spear. Su Fong woke up from the near-death experience and realized that his body was drenched in sweat. Night Demon's powerful primordial spirit attack was too terrifying. If it weren't for the ancestral fiend blood plate, Su Fong's divine aperture would have been destroyed by the primordial spirit spear and he would have been consigned to eternal damnation. Ancestral fiend blood plate? Damn it, how can a human cultivator like you have a primordial spirit magic treasure of the demons? Night Demon's voice contained a trace of panic. Night Demon was a strange existence. It wasn't a living body, but a primordial spirit body. It was born with an incomparably powerful primordial spirit ability that could devour the primordial spirits of cultivators, big goblin, and demons. It could also control the primordial spirit consciousness and turn it into a puppet. Therefore, as soon as Night Demon appeared, it would immediately become the target of all the races in the universe. The only thing that could restrain Night Demon was a primordial spirit magic treasure. And in the universe, the most famous primordial spirit magic treasure was the demon's ancestral fiend blood plate. Su Fong had taken out heaven-defying magic treasures like the Eternity Car, the Prison-Suppressing Codex, and the Origin Sacred Mirror. Now, he took out the ancestral fiend blood plate that could restrain Night Demon. It made Night Demon feel like he had poked a hornet's nest. He even suspected that Su Fong was hiding a treasure trove with all kinds of heaven-defying magic treasures. Su Fong was about to activate the ancestral fiend blood plate when Night Demon shouted, "Wait!" Su Fong sneered, "What, you're only afraid now? It's too late." "Afraid?" Night Demon snorted disdainfully. "Although the ancestral demon blood plate can pose a threat to me, it's not enough to scare me. Moreover, you're just a mere Dao integration stage immortal who can activate a portion of the ancestral demon blood plate's power. What do I have to fear? What are you trying to say?" Su Fong's ancestral fiend blood plate was blood plate spirit magic treasure trove circled above his head. Su Fong raised his eyebrows. "A deal? With your extraordinary strength and so many heaven-defying treasures and abilities, you must be an extraordinary figure in the myriad of worlds. Why don't you and I work together? Together, we can achieve that unparalleled hegemony." Su Fong smiled embarrassedly and asked, "How does the Lord of Sky will want to cooperate? It won't be long before I'll be able to master my divine ability and leave this ninth underworld to enter the myriad of worlds. When the time comes, I'll be in the dark while you'll be in the light. We'll work together to control the cultivators and infiltrate the various great powers. When the time comes, you and I will rise up against the heavens and dominate the myriad of worlds. We'll become the supreme overlords that unify the myriad of worlds and achieve unprecedented supremacy." Su Fong's lips curled into a cold smile. "This deal sounds good, but who will be in charge when the time comes?" "Of course, this lord will be in charge, and you'll be my assistant. However, this lord promises that I won't use Night Demon's divine ability to control your thoughts and consciousness, nor will I treat you as a slave. When this lord succeeds, you'll also be a peerless overlord that controls countless divine worlds." I have to think carefully about such a big deal. Su Fong was lost in thought. After more than 2 hours, Night Demon finally became impatient. Human, are you deliberately stalling for time? You're seriously injured now. Without a million years of rest, it's impossible for you to recover. If you have other ideas, this lord doesn't have time to accompany you. Su Fong snorted coldly and embarrassedly. Lord of Sky Wheel, your conditions are indeed very tempting and tempting. It's not impossible to cooperate with you, but you have to remove those tricks on my grandfather's soul first. Only then can I cooperate with you. What do you think? Of course. Release the soul of your family member from the ancestor devil blood plate. This lord will take back the primordial spirit consciousness that has fused with that soul, so that your family member's soul can return to the cycle of reincarnation and be reborn. Su Fongda was delighted. Thank you, Lord of Sky Wheel. A dim light flashed in Night Demon's eyes. A very obscure coldness flashed in the depths of his incomparably deep eyes. How could he really cooperate with Su Fong? As long as Su Fong released his grandfather's soul from the ancestor devil blood plate, Night Demon would have a way to control it and use it as a threat to suppress Su Fong as a slave. QL11 Su Fong activated the ancestor devil blood plate and slowly flew out. Night Demon's mouth curved into a smile. Just as he was about to release Su Fong's grandfather's soul, an illusory lightning suddenly flashed in Su Fong's eyes. Night Demon was incomparably shocked to discover that there was an illusory aura that firmly locked onto him. No matter where he escaped to, he couldn't escape from this aura. Because this aura didn't lock onto his primordial spirit, but destiny. Furthermore, Night Demon could feel that this aura contained a peerless lightning technique, a supreme divine ability that could destroy destiny. The thunder of destiny. Night Demon's divine light instantly changed. He shouted angrily, "Human, what are you doing?" Before he could finish speaking, a silent clap of thunder suddenly sounded. Just as Night Demon was about to use his primordial spirit divine ability to counterattack, the thunder of destiny's supreme power that could wipe out destiny exploded in his illusory destiny. It wanted to completely wipe him and everything related to his destiny from the world. Puff, puff. The terrifying power that could wipe out destiny continued. The dim light that Night Demon had turned into fluttered like a lamp in a violent wind. It quickly dimmed and became illusory, as if it would be extinguished at any time. The power of destiny had not ended. However, Night Demon was indeed powerful. Under the double attack of the thunder of destiny and the ancestor demon blood plate, his primordial spirit fire was still intact. This was also because Su Fong's cultivation level was still at the Tao integration realm. Furthermore, the power of the thunder of destiny was greatly reduced when he was severely injured. Night Demon roared angrily, "Damn human! How can you be so despicable and go back on your words? I'll definitely. Are you going to pull out my tendons, skin me, and refine my soul forever?" Su Fong was already in a severely injured state. Using the thunder of destiny again made things worse. At this moment, he had turned into an old man in his 60s. His hair was snow-white, and there were even dead spots on his face that only appeared on an old man who was about to die. However, his eyes were still flashing with madness and viciousness as he shouted at Night Demon. "Cooperate with you? What a joke! I, Su Fong, do not aspire to become the overlord of the heavens and realms. Instead, I want to transcend this universe. Why would I cooperate with you, Night Demon? Furthermore, there is an irreconcilable enmity between me and Night Demon. My first woman's consciousness was erased by you, Night Demon, and she lost herself. You deserve to die even more. How dare you threaten me with my family? I, Su Fong, hate people who threaten my family the most. Anyone who has done so in the past has been mercilessly killed by me," Su Fong said coldly, no longer concealing the killing intent in his heart. Night Demon endured the destruction of the thunder of destiny with great difficulty. The humanoid black light had shrunk to the size of a baby. It was dim and lightless, and the shadow inside had also become blurry. Clearly, it was heavily injured. The ancestral demon blood plate was still wildly releasing the power of the origin spirit. It wanted to shackle Night Demon and make it difficult for him to break free. Night Demon threatened loudly, "This Lord's consciousness has taken over the depths of your family's soul. Unless this Lord personally takes action, anyone who touches his soul will be devoured by this Lord's origin spirit consciousness, making him completely disappear. Do you think I would give that origin spirit consciousness of yours a chance? If I wasn't confident, why would I take action against you?" Su Fong sneered in a domineering manner, scoffing at Night Demon's threat. He had grasped the supreme life shrinking technique. As long as he recovered from his injuries, he could easily erase Night Demon's consciousness from his grandfather's soul without harming his grandfather's soul at all. To Su Fong, his grandfather was more important than the heavens. If he wasn't confident, why would he not hesitate to consume his lifespan to kill Night Demon? "It seems like you really want to kill this Lord." "Humph, this Lord has occupied the yin-yang heavenly wheel for so many years. How can an ant-like existence like you kill me?" Night Demon saw that his threat was ineffective and gave up completely. He made up his mind, and the black light suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying origin spirit vibration power. It forcibly shattered a hole in the ancestral demon blood plate's origin spirit divine power. Su Fong was shocked. Oh no! Night Demon was only left with a blurry shadow. He instantly hid in space, and when he reappeared, he was already on the spell altar below the yin-yang heavenly wheel. The shadow let out a cold howl, and thousands of black-clothed men flew out from the spell altar. They flew towards him like moths to a flame, turning into black light that enveloped him. After a while, Night Demon reformed into a black-clothed man again. He was actually unharmed. Chapter 2461. Su Fong did not feel that it was a pity that Yi Mei had escaped. After all, his opponent was Yi Mei, whose primordial spirit surpassed that of an ordinary sovereign. Moreover, Su Fong was seriously injured. To be able to escape Yi Mei's shackles and seriously injure him was enough for Su Fong to feel proud. "Kill this human!" Yi Mei, who had survived the disaster, was furious and let out a voice full of murderous intent. More than 1,000 black-robed men flew over from the altars below the yin-yang heavenly wheel. They were all lifeless primordial spirit puppets. At the same time, Yi Mei also activated the yin-yang heavenly wheel. As the two huge wheels rotated, they burst out with the power of the cycle of life and death, forming a world. The chains on the yin-yang heavenly wheel waved and swept toward Su Fong like an octopus monster. Countless nether souls swooped down from the sky, shrieking miserably as they charged at Su Fong. "Master of the heavenly wheel, I, Su Fong, hereby swear that one day, I will shackle you and refine your soul forever." Su Fong let out a clanging sound. As soon as his voice fell, the ancestor demon blood plate burst out with monstrous primordial spirit waves that swept in all directions. The primordial spirit power of the ancestor demon blood plate surpassed that of an ordinary sovereign. How amazing was its power! Wherever the black demon chi swept, it was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaf. The black-robed men, the souls on the chains, and the nether souls that rushed toward Su Fong were all swept away and shattered. Huang Lingyao also suddenly made a move. She activated the nether moon and released a stream of light that was like a moon river. It swept out in a mighty manner and knocked back the chains that were swinging towards her. Su Fong withdrew the ancestor demon blood plate. Immediately, a mysterious purple chi rushed out of his body. A supreme power that could control heaven and earth made the yin-yang heavenly wheel tremble constantly. The world of the cycle of life and death also began to tremble and collapse. Break! Huang Lingyao activated the nether moon to spin wildly, turning it into a moon wheel and slashing fiercely on the barrier of the world formed by the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. The world barrier, which was already on the brink of collapse, was torn apart. QL11 Following this, Huang Lingyao released a divine might that wrapped around Su Fang. Following the divine might released by Mingyu, they instantly teleported out of the yin-yang sky wheel world. Under the cover of the cold moonlight released by the nether moon, Huang Lingyao and Su Fang flew on the nether river. In an instant they crossed an endless distance. About half an hour later, Huang Lingyao staggered, unable to hold on any longer, and fell into the netherworld river. Su Fang used the last of his strength to look up at the sky. What a waste of a letter! Green? Waves? Crabs and falcons standing tall and proud? Ginseng Sakura? Chop? Itheta in such a heavily injured state, Su Fang was worried that the Lord of the Sky Wheel would send another expert after him, and he also had to be on guard against the Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance Alliance who could appear at any time. What he had to do now was to utilize the Nether River to delay for as long as he could and recover his strength as soon as possible before swiftly leaving the ninth underworld. Heavens? Cell. Rubber ram herder? Jean Lai? Slowly and unwillingly, loyal and loyal to the Yellow Prince, unwillingly and unwillingly? Major? Clams and razor claws. A large number of nether souls in the river of nether sensed the life aura of the two big goblin. Like moths that had seen light, they frantically surged towards them. Heavens? Astragalus? Wei Sha Brand? What do you mean by Pa Nei Chu? Eunuch deposed Nei Yu. This lasted for about a month. The two big goblin attracted more and more netherworld souls, as well as some extremely powerful netherworld monsters. There were simply too many of them, and it was impossible to kill all of them. This made the two big goblins' situation even more difficult. The big goblins' life force and blood energy were also extremely vigorous, and it was extremely attractive to the nether souls and nether monsters. However, its primordial spirit was extremely weak, and it was very difficult for it to deal with those nether souls and nether monsters. Heavens? Are you looking at Dewey carries? Are you looking at Dewey? Rock ape fake ambergris see Yunnan? Model? Let me out. Was Su Fang looking up at the sky? Jean Lai? Hui Fu Jiji? Hui Yunyu? Tanai? Small bag of leavening. After recovering slightly and barely escaping from the brink of death, he immediately looked up at the sky. What? Wan Yusher heavens? Gao? Rolling the sauce and stewing Lu Sun Chu? Trample? Street sweetheart? Zhou? Green? Waves? Little then, he immediately took out the ancestral fiend blood plate, and the divine might of his primordial spirit swept out. In an instant, all the nether souls within a 50-mile radius were reduced to nothingness. The nether monsters were also shattered. It felt as if the Su Fang had set a fire, burning all the moth-like spirits and monsters of the underworld to nothing. Before the netherworld souls and netherworld monsters from 50 kilometers away surged over again, Su Fang took out the Heavenly Supervisor token and cast the power of the Heavenly Tao Order to quickly create an array formation in the surroundings. After doing all this, Su Fang was already panting as if he had collapsed. He still gritted his teeth and took out 3 runes condensed from the Heavenly Secret Life shrinking technique. He fused them with the array formation, forming the power to conceal life aura and enveloping the space inside the array formation. Su Fang let out a long breath and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He sat down cross-legged in the array formation with difficulty. He was finally safe for the time being. After doing all this, Su Fang calmed down. The crisis was far from over, and he did not have any time to catch his breath. He carefully checked his body. His black hair had turned white, and his body was like a withered tree. Furthermore, the internal injuries of his body, especially his heart, were only temporarily suppressed by Huang Lingyao's sneak attack. They could erupt at any time, and could even threaten his life. The losses were extremely heavy. Su Fang's eyes were filled with killing intent. Night Demon, I swear that I will return to the heavenly wheel of Yin Yang, shackle you, and refine your soul forever. Hence, he began to devour pills and spiritual items crazily. He also activated the 9 yang 9 transformations. The 9 yang true fire burned crazily in his body, refining the pills and spiritual items and restoring the life aura of his body. The blood crystals that could quickly replenish life and blood energy had already been completely consumed by Su Fang, causing Su Fang's recovery speed to slow down significantly. After some thought, Su Fang peeled off a wisp of Yang soul and entered his inner world. He released his will to the creation tree. Creation tree, I need your essence to quickly recover from my injuries. It turned out that he planned to use the wood element essence of the creation tree to speed up his recovery. Ever since the creation tree recognized Su Fang as its master, it had become the pillar that supported the world in his body. No matter how badly Su Fang was injured in the past, he had never had any thoughts about the creation tree. However, it was different this time. A life and death crisis could descend at any time, so he no longer had any scruples. Yes, master. An old voice sounded in Su Fang's mind. Immediately after, the huge creation tree trembled. A green aura rose and quickly condensed into something that looked like a green water droplet. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. The creation tree condensed a total of 10 drops of wood element essence. It suddenly became much more dispirited, and many of its leaves even turned yellow. Su Fang transmitted his will to the creation tree. Thank you. One day, I will make it up to you with spiritual items of heaven and earth. When my universe is completed, you will be the pillar that connects the heavens and earth. The creation tree trembled and responded to Su Fang. Su Fang's Yang soul took the 10 drops of wood element essence and left his inner world. How astonishing was the wood element essence contained in the creation tree. As the wood element essence fused into his body, Su Fang's originally dispirited life aura suddenly surged. It surged and whistled in his body, and his withered body glowed with vitality at an astonishing speed. About half a month later, with the help of the creation tree's essence, pills, and spiritual items, mainly the essence of the creation tree, Su Fang finally recovered more than 30%. From this, it could be seen how serious Su Fang's injuries were. At the same time, it could also be seen how vast Su Fang's body was. At this time, Su Fang had the strength to use the great Tao of time. He created another layer of array formation inside the array formation to speed up the flow of time. Yellow Spring Blood Sea. After Su Fang formed a seal, his divine body collapsed and turned into the blue sky blood dome state. Hundreds of creation sacred pills, a large number of rare spiritual items, and the essence of the creation tree that had not been completely fused were directly absorbed by Su Fang into the blood water. Su Fang also condensed his main body from the blood water. He cultivated with the blue sky yellow spring while activating the 9 yang 9 transformations to cooperate with his recovery. As a result, Su Fang's recovery speed suddenly increased by more than 10 times. The blood dome surged and the blood sea roared. The world of heaven underworld was almost covered by the flames of life. As time passed, the flame of life burned wildly in the heaven underworld world, and Su Fang recovered at an astonishing speed. After completely getting rid of the seriously injured state, Su Fang peeled off a strand of Yang spirit and entered the inner space of Xianhuang's 6 Paths Pagoda. Being looked up at in a formation? Cowardly buck shepherd? Acne finger base of tiller. As soon as Su Fang's Yang spirit appeared, Huang Lingyao suddenly opened her eyes, but immediately closed them again. Su Fang called out, Huang Lingyao. Huang Lingyao said indifferently, Huang Lingyao is dead. The one in front of you right now is the Xianming sect master of the Nether Moon Divine Clan. Su Fang's Yang spirit was silent for a while. God made fools of people. Who would have thought that Huang Lingyao would end up in such a state? Are you pitying this sect master? Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fang with lifeless eyes. Immediately, she said coldly, This sect master has pursued strength by all means, even if it means losing my life. At this time, my wish has been fulfilled. You don't have to pity me, and I don't need your pity." Su Fong sighed silently. With a thought, a small jade bottle appeared in front of Huang Lingyao. "There are about 10 drops of soul marrow milk in the bottle. Take it to restore your primordial spirit." In the yin-yang heavenly wheel, Huang Lingyao's primordial spirit had also suffered a lot of damage, but the soul marrow milk's ability to restore the primordial spirit was amazing. She only needed 1 drop of soul marrow milk to completely recover. The reason why Su Fong gave him 10 drops was due to the guilt in his heart. After all, Huang Lingyao had sex with him. At this time, she had become like this, which made Su Fong's heart ache. Huang Lingyao reached out and grabbed the jade bottle, but didn't say anything. Su Fong asked, "Xianming sect master, where will you go next?" Huang Lingyao's cold murderous intent flashed. "Kill the heavenly wheel master." Chapter 2462. "Even if you don't kill the lord of the heavenly wheel, I'll head to the heavenly wheel of yin-yang to suppress him. You don't have to do anything. Cultivate here, and you can leave at any time once you've recovered." Su Fong's yang soul nodded, and then he passed through the formation. Su Fong's main body continued to recover from his injuries within the time formation. Once he recovered to his peak state, there was still a huge problem to deal with, and it was his grandfather's soul. Su Fong's grandfather's soul contained Night Demon's soul, and it would be a huge problem if it wasn't dealt with completely. Su Fong naturally didn't want his grandfather's soul to suffer any more injuries, so he had to deal with it with all his strength. He would try to wipe out Night Demon's soul once he recovered to his peak state. Just as Su Fong was recovering in the depths of the Nether River, an uninvited guest had arrived outside the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. He wore a cloak that seemed to be condensed from black blood, and it was covered in devilish markings. Even though he had the appearance of an old human, he was a devil god. However, his devilish chi revealed an aura that was different from ordinary devil gods. It was evil and otherworldly, as if it didn't belong to this universe. This devil god was a devil god that had relied on the changes in the heavens and the earth to be reborn. He was also one of the 9 remaining emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance, the Devil Saint. The old man sniffed hard, and then his white brows instantly furrowed. A great battle occurred here, and it's clearly filled with Su Fong's aura. The heavenly wheel of yin-yang is a place that maintains the cycle of life and death in the 9th hell. Why is Su Fong here? Who's that expert that stopped the cycle of life and death? At this moment, Night Demon's voice that was filled with killing intent resounded from the altar beneath the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. "Who is it? The heavenly wheel of yin-yang is my territory. Don't blame me for being merciless if you don't leave right now." Her voice contained shocking pressure towards the soul, and it struck the Devil Saint's divine aperture. The Tao-defiant Demon Saint was a top expert amongst the 9 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance. However, his soul divinity wasn't strong, so his brows were tightly knit together while his divine apertures were shaken by the impact of Night Demon's soul divinity. What powerful soul energy! I never expected that such an expert would be hiding within the heavenly wheel of yin-yang. Could he be one of the 9 emperors of the past? The Tao Defiants were shocked. He cupped his fists towards the yin-yang sky wheel and shouted, "I am Fu Sha, the Tao Defiant Alliance's supreme devil saint. I have no ill intentions in coming to the yin-yang sky wheel. Please don't misunderstand." "Fu Sha, the Tao Defiance Alliance?" Night Demon's cold voice was filled with surprise. Then, he continued, "This lord remembers that Fumi was a peerless great demon that surpassed the ancient era. Moreover, he had already fallen in the first great war between humans and demons. You actually call yourself Demon Sage Fumi? Furthermore, your aura contains the aura of death and transcends the heavens and earth. Could it be that you have already transcended?" "No, you are still far from transcending." The Tao-defiant devil saint chuckled. Looks like you've stayed in the yin-yang heavenly wheel for too long. You don't know about the great changes in the universe. I'm not interested in the changes in the myriad worlds. You should leave quickly to avoid any misunderstandings. Night Demon snorted. At this moment, he was heavily injured, and he was extremely fearful of the Tao-defiant devil saint, Fu Sha. So, he bluntly ordered Fu Sha to leave. Fu Sha said, "Sire, why must you keep people 1,000 li away? If this saint's guess is correct, you had a great battle with someone not long ago. This saint wants to know more about it from you. I hope you can tell me the truth." Night Demon instantly became vigilant. "Demon Sage Fumi, could it be that you think I had a great battle with someone and intend to hit me when I'm down?" Demon Sage Fumi laughed loudly. "In that case, this saint and you should have a common enemy." After that, Demon Sage Fumi slowly told Night Demon about his pursuit of Su Fong. "Is that true?" Night Demon finally relaxed her vigilance. "That cultivator called Su Fong had a great battle with me, and he's currently heavily injured and on the verge of death. You only need to find him, and with your strength, you can easily kill him. However, the 9th underworld is so vast, so it's absolutely not easy to find him. From what you've said, you have a way to find Su Fong." Demon Sage Fumi's spirit was instantly refreshed. How vast was the 9th underworld? In addition, in the 9th underworld, the senses of venerable emperors were also limited. Finding Su Fong in the 9th underworld was tantamount to looking for a needle in a haystack. The 9 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance had entered the 9th underworld and were first trapped by the mountain guards. Then, they searched for Su Fong for a long time, but they still couldn't find any trace of Su Fong. On the contrary, 3 venerable emperors of the Tao Defiance had lost contact with the other venerable emperors, and no one knew what kind of danger they had encountered. Now they had finally found Su Fong's trace, and the peerless powerhouse who controlled the yin-yang heavenly wheel had a way to find Su Fong. How could Demon Sage Fumi not be pleasantly surprised? Night Demon said coldly, "This master controls the yin-yang heavenly wheel, and with its divine power, this master can sense every corner of the 9th underworld. Moreover, that cultivator called Su Fong has a strand of this master's consciousness in one of his magic treasures, so it's naturally easy to find his trace. However," Demon Sage Fumi hurriedly said, "as long as you can find Su Fong, you can state any conditions you have." Night Demon said, "This master's request is very simple. If this master helps you find Su Fong, after you kill him, all his magic treasures and other treasures will belong to this master." Demon Sage Fumi raised his eyebrows. "Your request is really too much. This saint can't agree to it. You should know that the Origin Sacred Mirror in Su Fong's possession is something the Tao Defiance Alliance must obtain. Even if this saint agrees to give it to you, the Tao Defiance Alliance will never agree." Night Demon only knew the origin of the mirror in Su Fong's possession now, and she was shocked. The Origin Sacred Mirror? The mirror in Su Fong's possession is the legendary token to enter the exalted Celestial Mountain, and it's also a supreme magic treasure that surpasses divine creation artifacts. That's right. The Origin Sacred Mirror is now related to the entire universe, so this alliance must obtain it. Apart from the Origin Sacred Mirror, you can choose 1 or 2 other treasures. 3 treasures. This master doesn't want the Origin Sacred Mirror, but this master wants at least 3 of Su Fong's other magic treasures. In addition, he has a bottle of spiritual treasures of heaven and earth that is very important to this master, and it will also belong to this master. Night Demon wanted to obtain Su Fong's ancestral devil blood plate the most, and there was also the universe chariot and the prison suppressing codex. The spiritual treasures of heaven and earth that Night Demon mentioned were naturally the soul marrow elixir, which was very useful for his recovery, so he naturally wouldn't let it go. Deal. The 2 peerless experts colluded just like that, and they even began to divide Su Fong's magic treasures and treasures. Then it's a deal. This master will bring you to Su Fang right now. Night Demon slowly flew out from the spell altar, and with a shake of his arms, the thousands of black-robed men on the spell altar flew towards him and quickly merged with him. Night Demon's body quickly became corporeal, and his aura also became much more vast. Then, he formed a seal with both hands, and the yin-yang heavenly wheel rumbled and rapidly shrank. Together with the countless souls shackled by the chains, they immediately flew towards him, and were absorbed into his body through his palm. Without the yin-yang heavenly wheel, the countless souls in the sky immediately lost control and swept in all directions like a black tide, looking very terrifying. Night Demon used the yin-yang heavenly wheel to constantly sense the aura left behind by Su Fang in the 9 underworld. Although the soul consciousness residing in Su Fang's grandfather's soul was isolated by the ancestral devil blood plate, it could still faintly sense Su Fangda's location with the help of the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Night Demon and Fu Sha constantly sensed Su Fang's aura, and followed the places Su Fang and Huang Lingyao had passed through. About 30 years. In the depths of the Nether River. Su Fang had already spent nearly 1,000 years in the formation, constantly swallowing elixirs, spiritual objects, and the essence of the builder wood. Finally, he completely recovered to his peak state. His hair became black again, and his skin, which was originally like withered tree bark, became smooth and elastic. His divine body was once again surging with a majestic aura. Finally, he recovered from his serious injuries, which made Su Fang happy, but at the same time, his heart palpitated. The injuries he suffered this time were more severe than any of the previous times. The reason he was able to recover so quickly was not only because of his powerful recovery abilities, but also because of the supreme luck brought to him by the purple cloud Dharma spirit. It's time to solve the problem in grandfather's soul, and then quickly leave the 9 underworlds. As soon as Su Fang recovered from his injuries, he thought of his grandfather's soul. Grandfather, scenes of his childhood flashed through Su Fang's mind again. His father ran away from home, his mother died of depression, and Su Fang became a useless person who could not cultivate. Only his grandfather cared and loved him when he was at the lowest point of his life. It was not easy for him to cultivate, but his grandfather died at the hands of his enemy. Su Fang, from the small world to the big world, had never been able to let go of this matter until now. Now that he could finally make up for the regret of the past, Su Fang's heart surged again. Calm down, I have to calm down now. Su Fang controlled his breathing and forced himself to calm down. Only when his heart became calm did Su Fang take out the ancestral devil blood plate, peel off his yang spirit, and enter the magic treasure's internal space. In the vast space of the magic treasure, inside a formation, his grandfather's soul floated quietly. Looking at the white-haired shadow, Su Fang's mind trembled again. Carefully examining his grandfather's soul and sensing his soul aura, Su Fang found that his soul had become much more solid after being nourished by the soul marrow nether milk over the years. Su Fang let out a long sigh of relief. Grandfather was shackled in the yin-yang heavenly wheel and pulled the yin-yang heavenly wheel with countless souls. Although he was tortured, his soul became very weak under the might of the yin-yang heavenly wheel, but it was not to the point of no return. If he was like those souls crushed by the yin-yang heavenly wheel, then even if Su Fang had a heaven-defying ability, it would be difficult to change anything. It's starting, hateful night demon, watch how I deal with you. Chapter 2463. Su Fang's consciousness began to flow into his grandfather's soul. Su Fang's grandfather was immortal, and his soul was extremely fragile. Su Fang had to be careful, afraid of causing any damage to his grandfather's soul. Su Fang finally discovered something when he reached the deepest part of his soul. It was a black shadow in human form. It floated there, giving Su Fang a strange and dangerous feeling. At most, it's just a wisp of Night Demon's primordial spirit consciousness. I'm not even afraid of Night Demon's primordial spirit, so why would I care about a wisp of your primordial spirit consciousness? Su Fang approached carefully and realized that the black shadow was actually a ball of black light. It seemed to have come from the darkest place in the universe. However, it was this ball of black light that contained primordial spirit divine power that Su Fang determined was at least upper-rank lord level. It was no wonder that Huang Lingyao had been taken over by Night Demon when he had been caught off guard. It was merely a wisp of Night Demon's primordial spirit consciousness condensed from his own power, yet it possessed such primordial spirit divine power. It was enough to show how powerful Night Demon's primordial spirit was. He did not expect Night Demon's consciousness to sense Su Fang's consciousness as well. A thought came from the black light: "Human, if you don't want your loved one's soul to be completely obliterated, I advise you not to have any unrealistic thoughts." Su Fang laughed coldly and domineeringly. "Your primordial spirit has been severely injured by me. You're just a wisp of your primordial spirit consciousness. Now that you've been sealed by my ancestral demon blood plate's divine power and formation, how dare you be so arrogant? So what? I'm residing in the depths of your loved one's soul. As long as you activate the ancestral demon blood plate or use some other technique, I can turn him into ashes with just a thought." Scram! Night Demon's consciousness mocked and ridiculed. Then, a black wave of primordial spirit energy erupted, shattering Su Fang's consciousness. What an arrogant Night Demon! Su Fang's primordial spirit sneered and activated the ancestral demon blood plate. His grandfather's soul was swept out by a divine power. "Human, just give up. At most, we'll fight to the death." Night Demon's consciousness transmitted a thought from the depths of his soul. It was extremely arrogant and smug. "You will die, but you won't break the net," Su Fang shouted in a domineering manner. Lightning flashed in his eyes as he used the heavenly secret life-shortening technique to erase fate, the thunder of destiny. Exterminating Night Demon's consciousness was easy, but Night Demon's consciousness was hidden in the depths of his grandfather's soul. Su Fang had no choice but to refrain from using the ancestral devil blood plate's divine might to kill her. If his grandfather's soul was affected, he would regret it for the rest of his life. As a result, Su Fang used the thunder of destiny to wipe out Night Demon's consciousness. This way, his grandfather's soul would not be affected at all. "Human, this lord has warned you. Since you turned a deaf ear to my warning, then this lord will perish together with the souls of your loved ones." When the Night Demon's consciousness sensed a fatal threat approaching, it turned into a black wave of primordial spirit and exploded in the depths of Su Fang's grandpa's soul. QL11 Before the power of the thunder of destiny could erupt, the primordial spirit formed by Night Demon's consciousness had already swept over. It instantly shattered Su Fang's grandfather's soul and turned it into nothingness. With a flash of black light, Night Demon's consciousness was about to escape. Su Fang didn't even bat an eyelid as he watched his grandfather's soul being destroyed. That was because he had long expected Night Demon's consciousness to put up a desperate fight. This concerned his grandfather's soul. If he was not completely confident, how could he act so easily? A mysterious black and white yin-yang vortex suddenly surged in his eyes and spun counterclockwise rapidly. Qi. A black and white xian guang instantly enveloped the place where his grandfather's soul was shattered. It turned into a mysterious yin-yang vortex and spun counterclockwise rapidly. Reversing the world, controlling fate, mediating destiny technique. A supreme divine might that could reverse the past and control the future suddenly erupted. As the black and white vortex spun rapidly, it reflected the scenes that had just happened. Time flowed in reverse at this moment. The reflected light and shadow showed his grandfather's soul shattering and returning to its original state. Then, it showed Night Demon being arrogant and complacent after being pulled out of the ancestral devil blood plate by Su Fang. The yin-yang vortex surging in Su Fang's eyes suddenly stopped. Then, he reached out and grabbed at the air. The reflected light and shadow in the black and white vortex instantly stopped. His grandfather's undamaged soul was pulled out of the light and shadow by Su Fang and quickly turned into a real existence. As for the fleeing black light, it turned into nothingness in a flash. Su Fang's mediating destiny technique, the heavenly divination technique, and the great Tao of time fused together to create the mediating destiny technique. Even a supreme time magic treasure like the Infinity Wheel could not accomplish such a feat. The power released by the Infinity Wheel could only reverse the flow of time, stop it, and accelerate it. When used on a strong enemy, it could cause great damage to them. However, Su Fang's mediating destiny technique could not only reverse time, but also change the past. The mediating destiny technique was obviously more powerful than the Infinity Wheel. However, with Su Fang's current cultivation, it was difficult for him to erupt with too much power. Moreover, it had serious repercussions and could not be used frequently. Lightning of Destiny. Su Fang once again used the heavenly divination technique. Lightning of Destiny. Just as Night Demon's consciousness was arrogantly clamoring, the power of destiny obliterated it, leaving not even a trace of its existence behind. Su Fang was overjoyed that he had finally resolved a big problem. His eyes flickered with excitement. However, using the mediating destiny technique and the lightning of destiny in succession had caused Su Fang to pay a considerable price. His aura had become dispirited and his black hair had turned white. He had become a middle-aged man in his 40s. Not only had his lifespan decreased, but Su Fang had also lost his fortune. His glabella had darkened and a faint layer of dark clouds enveloped his body. The heavenly divination technique was truly heaven-defying. It could reverse time and change what had already happened. It was equivalent to tampering with heaven's secrets. How could he not pay a huge price? However, to wipe out Night Demon's consciousness and save his grandfather's soul, Su Fang would not hesitate to pay a huge price. Looking at his grandfather's soul again. Wiping out Night Demon's consciousness did not cause any damage to his grandfather's soul, but he still had not recovered his consciousness. After all, he had been tortured in the yin-yang heavenly wheel for 300,000 years. It was not easy to keep his soul intact. If he wanted to regain consciousness, he would need to nourish it with soul marrow milk. Moreover, Su Fang's grandfather was a mortal. His soul was too weak and could not bear the pure soul marrow milk. He could only dilute it with spirit water and slowly nourish it. However, Su Fang had plenty of patience. He estimated that after more than 100 years of nourishment, his grandfather's consciousness would slowly recover. Thinking of his grandfather's soul awakening and seeing his current achievements, Su Fang's blood boiled. Although he was now a peerless powerhouse in the heavens, in his opinion, in front of his grandfather, he was still the child who needed to be praised by his elders. Thinking of the scene of his grandfather and father meeting again, Su Fang became even more excited. As for how to solve the problem of his grandfather's soul, Su Fang had not thought of a solution for the time being. However, Su Fang had many ways. Even the remnant world spirit of the Golden Rainbow King could be resurrected by an Emperor Master, let alone his grandfather's intact soul. Su Fang carefully sent his grandfather's soul back into the inner space of the ancestral devil blood plate and nourished it with the diluted soul marrow milk. A huge stone was lifted from his heart. Su Fang once again used the azure blood dome to wantonly devour pills and spirit objects to restore himself to his peak state as soon as possible, and then find a way to leave the 9 underworld. Just as Su Fang was wiping out Night Demon's consciousness, Night Demon's true body used the yin-yang heavenly wheel to sense his yuan spirit consciousness and tracked Su Fang and Huang Lingyao's remnant aura to the void where Su Fang had entered the underworld river. Demon Saint Fu Sha, this is a little troublesome. That human Su Fang has actually entered the depths of the underworld river. It will take more effort to find him, Night Demon said in a cold voice. Fu Sha snorted. According to the Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, Su Fang is now in a seriously injured state, so where can he escape to? This saint also knows that this person has extraordinary divine powers and a heaven-defying recovery ability, but he is so seriously injured that it is impossible for him to recover in such a short time, right? As long as he is still in the 9 underworlds, it will be difficult for him to escape. Even if we have to turn the entire underworld river upside down, we must find him. That's true. As Night Demon nodded, he suddenly let out a shrill and painful scream. It was as if there was an invisible force from the unseen world that fiercely bombarded his body. His Yuan spirit body shattered layer by layer, turning into a black ray of light. The shadow inside shrank and rolled in pain, emitting a sharp Yuan spirit voice. It turned out that Su Fang had used the thunder of destiny to wipe out Night Demon's consciousness, causing Night Demon's true body to suffer along with it. The thunder of destiny obliterated everything connected to fate. Night Demon's consciousness bore the power of the thunder of destiny, so how could his true body, which was connected to his fate, escape? He was immediately bombarded by the invisible thunder from the unseen world. Fortunately, when Su Fang obliterated Night Demon's consciousness, he did not use the thunder of destiny with all his strength, so Night Demon's true body was not directly obliterated like his Yuan spirit consciousness. However, Night Demon was seriously injured by Su Fang's thunder of destiny and the ancestor devil blood plate in the yin-yang heavenly wheel. This time, he was bombarded by the thunder of destiny again, which made things worse for Night Demon. Even if he did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Lord of the Heavenly Wheel, what's wrong with you? Fu Sha exclaimed in shock. He was also shocked. He did not expect Night Demon's true body to be like this. At this time, he had already guessed Night Demon's origin and was even more afraid of him. Night Demon had finally endured the power of the thunder of destiny and was no longer able to condense his Yuan spirit body and return to his true body. He roared angrily, "It's Su Fang!" He obliterated this lord's Yuan spirit consciousness, and this lord was affected by his divine ability. Chapter 2464. Night Demon gritted her teeth. It's a supreme ability that can attack destiny. I've never heard of it in the past, but its might is unparalleled. This is the second time I've suffered such a huge loss. It's truly detestable. Lord of the Sky Wheel, do you still have the strength to sense Su Fang's aura? Fu Sha's heart palpitated, and then he asked about the thing he was most concerned about. Fu Sha naturally didn't care about Night Demon's life or death. If he wasn't slightly afraid of the energy of Night Demon's soul core, he even had the thought of killing her and seizing the yin-yang heavenly wheel. Su Fang, I swear I'll drag you out and refine your soul. Night Demon endured the enormous pain and rage as she used the yin-yang heavenly wheel to sense Su Fang again. After a long time, Night Demon said with surprise, "Damn it! I'm actually unable to sense his destiny aura. It's like he's completely evaporated. Could it be that he's already left the 9th hell?" Fu Sha said with certainty, "Su Fang is heavily injured, so it's absolutely impossible for him to leave the 9th hell. He's definitely still in the depths of the Nether River." Night Demon questioned, "The Nether River is formed from the energy of the Nether and the energy of the Heaven Tao's samsara. Even though there are countless Nether souls, they're unable to isolate the yin-yang heavenly wheel's senses. If Su Fang is still in the Nether River, then how could he escape my senses?" Fu Sha said coldly, "Since Su Fang possesses the ability to attack destiny, then he naturally possesses the ability to deceive destiny aura as well. So, what's so strange about being unable to sense him? He'll definitely be unable to escape my suppression so long as he's still in the 9th hell." As soon as he finished speaking, Fu Sha withdrew a black command token and sent a message to the other Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance. After that, Fu Sha stood in midair above the Nether River and waited for the other Emperor Realm experts to arrive. Night Demon floated there silently while she started to recover from the injuries of her soul core. Around 3 years later. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another 5 Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance arrived in succession near Fusha. There were revived cultivators, revived big goblin, devils, and a strange life form from the world of darkness. It seemed like a shadow, and it was even more illusory and strange than Night Demon. Su Fong has been found? After searching for him for so long, we're finally going to find him. Quickly take care of Su Fong so that we can return, break through the sky curtain, and destroy the sky beacon god realm. The other 5 Tao-defying emperors were all very excited. So long as they dealt with the Su Fong, then it would be equivalent to putting an end to the hopes of the human cultivators, and the day that the Tao Defiance Alliance dominated the universe was just around the corner. So, how could they not be excited? The Tao Defiance Alliance is actually so formidable. 6 Supreme Exalts have appeared all of a sudden, and it would be extremely easy for them to sweep through the entire 9th Hell. Yimei was both happy and worried when she saw so many Emperor Realm Masters appear all of a sudden, each of them exuding an ethereal and transcendent aura. He was happy because this time it would be difficult for Su Fong to escape with his life. What he was worried about was that after killing Su Fong, it would be quite difficult to get the treasure that Fu Sha had promised. Fu Sha glanced at the other 5 Tao Defiance. The whereabouts of the other 3 are still unknown? There were a total of 9 Emperor Realm Masters from the Tao Defiance Alliance who had entered the 9th Hell, and only 6 had appeared now. We've found them. The 3 of them were schemed against by Su Fong, and they're currently trapped in Supreme Huan Shun's damaged world. They're unable to escape for the time being, replied one of the Tao Defiance. 3 Emperor Realm Masters were actually unable to capture Su Fong and were trapped by Su Fong instead? Supreme Fu Sha was surprised, and his killing intent towards Su Fong grew even stronger. Then he said in a dignified manner, "The 6 of us are enough to capture Su Fong. Listen up, if we allow Su Fong to escape this time, then we won't be able to answer to the Alliance Master. So, you must use all your strength and absolutely cannot give Su Fong any chance to escape." Yes. The other 5 Tao Defiance replied solemnly. "Su Fong, this time, I'll make sure you have nowhere to run." Dark demonic chi surged out of Fu Sha's body, and after rolling for a while, it swiftly condensed into a demonic saber that was 1,000 feet long and slashed at the Nether River. Hiss! The surging Nether River was actually cut in half by Fu Sha's saber, and its flow was cut off. The might of this saber was not limited to just that. Demonic chi swiftly swept out from where the Nether River was cut off, and it devoured the Nether energy, reincarnation energy, and the Nether souls in the Nether River like a tornado. In just a dozen breaths of time, a vacuum of unknown size appeared at the center of the Nether River. The strength of the resurrected demon saint was terrifying. The Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance Alliance have discovered us. Su Fong, who was in the depths of the Nether River, immediately sensed the arrival of danger through the Heavenly Fate Life Shrinking Technique and the Heavenly Divination Profound Scripture the moment Fu Sha attacked. The might of Fu Sha's saber fell on the formation that Su Fong had created with the Heaven Supervisor token. Although the formation did not collapse, the Heavenly Fate Life Shrinking Technique had lost its effect, and it could no longer hide their track. The 6 Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance Alliance and that Yimei. Su Fong was extremely shocked, and then his heart suddenly sank as he realized that the situation had become serious. Even if Yimei could be ignored, the 6 Emperor Realm Masters were definitely not something that Su Fong could resist. Not to mention resisting, it was almost impossible for him to escape now that his tracks had been discovered, let alone escape. At worst, I'll just fight to the death. Faced with a life-and-death crisis, Su Fong's eyes flashed with a ruthless glint, and he immediately took out the Infinity Chariot. After stepping onto the Infinity Chariot, Su Fong activated it with all his strength, and in an instant, it flew away in a manner that surpassed time and ignored space. Su Fang! We've discovered him! Fu Sha and the other Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance sensed Su Fang's existence, and they released their divine might to envelop the surroundings and form shocking shackles. However, the Infinity Chariot's speed was extremely shocking, and it completely surpassed the limits of time and space. By the time their divine might descended, Su Fang had already left behind afterimages while driving the Infinity Chariot, and his body had already disappeared from the range of their divine might. The Infinity Chariot has the ability to surpass the limits of time and surpass the speed of our divine abilities. Chase him and suppress him once he's exhausted. Fu Sha shouted loudly, and his figure instantly vanished from the spot. He actually disregarded the consumption of his energy and broke through the shackles of the ninth underworld to travel through the void. The other Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance also tore through the void to pursue Su Fang. Yi Mei hesitated for a moment, and then she turned around and slowly flew towards the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. Yi Mei was extremely cunning and cautious. When she saw so many powerful Emperor Realm Masters of the Tao Defiance Alliance, she immediately gave up on the idea of dividing up the treasures in Su Fang's possession. She was afraid that the Tao Defiance Alliance would kill her and seize her treasures, so she simply returned to the Yin-Yang Heavenly Wheel. 3 days later, the speed of the Infinity Chariot gradually slowed down. It couldn't be helped. Although the Infinity Chariot's power was heaven-defying, Su Fang was only at the peak of the Tao integration stage after all. Facing the pursuit of a peerless Emperor Realm Master, it was impossible for Su Fang to drive the Infinity Chariot endlessly. Devil Saint Fu Sha appeared in the line of sight of the Great Perfection stage cultivators during that short moment of delay. Boom! Heaven and earth changed color in an instant. Devil Saint Fu Sha's devil chi and divine might shrouded the world. A huge devil palm covered the sky and covered the sun as it moved towards Su Fang. Devil Saint Fu Sha's cold and indifferent voice came slowly. Su Fang, I didn't expect you to recover so quickly. I don't know if Yi Mei was lying and deliberately exaggerating your injuries, or if your recovery ability is really so heaven-defying. However, no matter how heaven-defying you are, all your struggles are futile in front of this saint. If you don't obediently surrender, perhaps the Alliance Master will spare your life. He might even help you defy the Tao Defiance and grant you immortality. Su Fang flipped his right palm and took out the evil god flag. With a whoosh, it swept towards the direction of the palm. The evil god flag of that trash evil venerable Tiandu? Although its power is not bad, it won't be able to save your life. Devil Saint Fu Sha snorted disdainfully at Su Fang's evil god flag. Su Fang's deep eyes flashed with a ruthless look. Explode. At such a critical moment, Su Fang didn't have the time to feel sorry for himself anymore. With a thought, he directly detonated the evil god flag. Rumble. QL11 The formations and restrictions inside the evil god flag shattered with a loud bang. The hundreds of thousands of resurrected experts inside the evil god flag also self-detonated, causing an earth-shattering explosion. The evil god flag's most powerful attack was comparable to the full-powered attack of an Emperor Realm expert. Its power was incomparably shocking. At this time, the self-detonation of the evil god flag, coupled with the power of hundreds of thousands of resurrected experts, how terrifying would it be? Devil Sage Fuming Evil's divine might demonic palm was only able to withstand the power of the evil god flag's self-detonation for an instant before it shattered. The terrifying power that seemed capable of destroying heaven and earth collapsed the space and shattered all the laws as it swept toward Devil Saint Fu Sha. Devil Saint Fu Sha's divine light changed instantly. He opened his mouth and spat out a black divine light, which instantly condensed into a devil realm in front of him. Rumble. The power of the evil god flag's self-detonation collided with the devil realm created by Devil Saint Fu Sha, causing an earth-shattering explosion. The netherworld river's water shook and swept in all directions. In an instant, it seemed to have evaporated. The power of the underworld turned into nothingness, the cycle of reincarnation collapsed, and all the laws collapsed in the collision, turning into a state of chaos. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the void around the nether river, and soon after, it shattered. This collision was comparable to the powerful attack of a peak-level Emperor Realm expert of the Imperial people. It was truly shocking. Devil Saint Fu Sha's Devil Realm was also destroyed in the collision. The sky shattered and the earth was destroyed. It completely collapsed in an instant. However, the power of the evil god flag's self-detonation wasn't completely neutralized. Shocked, Devil Saint Fu Sha's body instantly turned into nothingness. Although he managed to avoid the fate of his body shattering, he was still affected in his nothingness state. When he appeared again, he spurted out a mouthful of blood. When everything returned to normal, a huge black hole appeared in the void. Black, ice-cold air flowed out of it. The air was filled with the pure aura of the 9 underworlds. It was completely different from the aura of the space-time plane where the netherworld river was. The self-detonation of the evil god flag actually shattered the boundary between the space-time planes and opened up a passage to another space-time. That's the 10 underworlds where Nether used to live. Looking at the black hole and sensing the familiar ice-cold aura, Su Fong was shocked. Chapter 2465. The 10 Underworlds. It was a space-time plane that surpassed the 9 underworlds, and it was even deeper than the 9 underworld. At the same time, it was the coldest and darkest place in the universe. The 10 underworlds was an extremely transcendent place that was unknown to outsiders. After the 9 underworlds shattered, no one knew about the 10 underworld. However, Su Fong knew that it was the place where Netherworld had once lived. However, this was of no help to Su Fong at all. Even if he fled into the 10 underworlds, he might not be able to escape the pursuit. He had no other choice but to flee into the 10 underworld. As soon as he entered the space-time black hole, an extremely icy cold aura enveloped Su Fong. His divine body and origin spirit felt as if they were instantly frozen into ice, and the defenses of his body and divine apertures had practically lost their effectiveness. Fortunately, this aura that came from the deepest part of the universe was extremely similar to 9 Chi. Moreover, it wasn't as pure and high-grade as 9 Chi. Su Fong possessed 9 Yang Qi, and he'd once ceaselessly absorbed 9 energy from the origin divine mirror to cultivate. So, the aura from the 10 underworlds couldn't pose a lethal threat to him. Yang Qi surged out from his Yang meridian and swiftly swept through his entire body, dispersing the icy cold aura within him. After that, Su Fong utilized the energy of the world of Yin and Yang to form a defensive field around him. He didn't dare to radiate his world aura too widely as that would cause even greater pressure. Swoosh! Su Fong was swallowed up by the shocking black hole along with the icy cold aura. This unexpected turn of events caused Fu Sha to be extremely shocked and furious. If he allowed Su Fong to escape under such circumstances, then the Tao Defiance Alliance's master would definitely punish him severely. Kill! Fu Sha charged into the space-time black hole without the slightest hesitation. The other 5 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance who followed closely behind him didn't hesitate to pursue Su Fong as well. Su Fong drifted along with the surging airflow. At the same time, he utilized his peak state ability to the limit to sense behind him. The airflow was extremely icy cold, and even his senses seemed to have been frozen. The range of his senses was less than 50 kilometers, and it made Su Fong feel as if he'd become a weakling again. Sure enough, it was just as Su Fong had expected. As he fell into the depths of the 10 serenities, in less than 10 breaths of time, he sensed an astonishingly vast demon qi rapidly approaching him. It was none other than Devil Saint Fu Sha. Despite the terrifying frigid air current, he seemed to be unfettered by it. Like a large ship, he chased after Su Fong. It was not that Devil Saint Fumi was not shackled in the icy air currents from the 10 underworlds. It was just that his strength was incomparably powerful. Even if he was shackled, he was still able to display powerful strength. Su Fang, since you refuse to submit to the Tao Defiance Alliance, then I have no choice but to kill you and eliminate all future troubles. Devil Sage Fuming Evil's demonic voice penetrated the shackles of the airflow and rang in Su Fang's ears. Before his voice died away, a black saber radiance of devil chi shattered the airflow as if it had split the entire black hole. It enveloped Su Fang and was about to cut him in half. Of course, it was not an ordinary demonic chi saber light, but a Tao-defying power that contained violence, evil, and transcended the heavenly way. If it was not suppressed in the black hole, it would probably be able to kill a supreme sovereign with one strike. Heavenly Way Dharma Idol. Su Fang sensed fatal danger and released the Heavenly Way Dharma Idol without hesitation. As soon as the Dharma Idol tree appeared, a yang spirit immediately fused with an earthy yellow fruit. After it fell off the branch, it turned into a towering mountain in a flash. It looked a little like the Kunwu Divine Mountain in the Great World. It was majestic and powerful, and it exuded a heavy ancient aura and an incomparably majestic and pure earth elemental power of nature. Su Fang had cultivated his inner world, and the Heavenly Way Dharma Idol was a Dharma Idol tree. Unlike other Tao integration stage immortals, his Dharma Idol tree had many Dharma Idol fruits, and each fruit could cast a powerful divine power once. Su Fang had mastered many powerful divine powers and magic treasures. In addition, the Heavenly Way Dharma Idol needed a long time to recover after casting it once. Therefore, he rarely used it. This did not mean that Su Fang's Heavenly Way Dharma Idol was not powerful enough. At this time, Su Fang had fused with an earth elemental Dharma Idol fruit and released a Dharma Idol mountain with astonishing defensive power. Who knew Qi? Under the demonic Qi saber light, the Dharma Idol mountain was split into two like tofu and immediately collapsed into nothingness. Heaven's Supervisor Token. Su Fang's eyes narrowed. The Heaven's Supervisor Token erupted with the power of the Heavenly Tao Order, and it rapidly turned from nothingness to reality, turning into a huge prison that was 5 kilometers long. It emitted the aura of the Heavenly Tao and tightly imprisoned him in the center. Inner world. At the same time, the power of the yin-yang world surged out of his body and rapidly turned into a universe. Boom, boom, boom. The prison created by the Heaven Supervisor Token was shattered by the demonic Qi saber light. Although the saber light had become much dimmer, its remaining power was not over, and it ruthlessly slashed down on Su Fang's inner world. The saber light shattered, and the inner world collapsed with a loud crash. Su Fang staggered, and with a Qi sound, a shattered saber light slashed across Su Fang's right arm and chopped it off. QL-11 blood splattered everywhere. Su Fang did not care about his injuries. Using the impact of the inner world's collapse, his body floated into the depths of the surging airflow like a kite with a broken string. Heavenly Secret Life Shrinking Technique, Concealing Aura. Su Fang did not hesitate to use the Heavenly Secret Life Shrinking Technique, completely stripping away his fate and aura, causing his aura to turn into nothingness. Only then did he circulate the blood qi in his body to restore his severed arm. Unexpectedly, when the blood qi swam to the place where his severed arm was, it was immediately devoured by the evil demonic qi. Furthermore, the demonic qi was still wantonly spreading into his body, wanting to devour Su Fang's body. Su Fang had no choice but to activate the 9-yang divine fire to stop the demonic qi from invading his body. The demonic qi was too shocking, and Su Fang's 9-yang divine fire could not refine it. It could only stop it from continuing to deteriorate, let alone restore his severed arm. This time, could it be that my good luck has run out and I'm going to die here? This thought flashed across Su Fang's mind, making him feel an inexplicable sense of despair. Even if I die, I, Su Fang, will not allow myself to be captured without putting up a fight. I will fight for my last chance of survival. If I really can't escape, then I will die with a bang. It was absolutely impossible for Su Fong to sit and wait for death. His heart was filled with determination, dispelling his despair and decadence. The space-time black hole was extremely deep, and there was no end in sight. Su Fong allowed his body to drift along with the current, while madly devouring elixirs and spiritual objects to recover his energy and injuries. Buzz, 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 buzz. The heavenly secret life shrinking technique and the heavenly mystery Jiezhen script flickered rapidly once again. An unprecedented fatal crisis was approaching Su Fong. Immortal blood spirit. A ball of blood gushed out of Su Fong's left hand, quickly condensing into 3 doppelgangers with the same appearance and aura as him. They were the immortal blood spirits that he had condensed with his blood. Swoosh, swoosh. The 3 immortal blood spirits moved towards different directions and passed through the icy cold airflow. The aura of Su Fong's main body had instantly withered by almost a third. For the sake of deceiving the Tao Defiance that were pursuing him from behind, he'd exhausted a huge amount of his vital blood to condense the immortal blood spirits. He'd ceaselessly executed his ability at perfection and the heavenly secret life shrinking technique to project his senses behind him. Sure enough, he'd sensed that there were 6 Tao Defiance pursuing him from behind, and every 2 of them were pursuing one of his doppelgangers. In this way, the pursuers behind Su Fong had been split into 3 groups. His main body had temporarily concealed his aura with the heavenly secret life shrinking technique, so it was impossible for those pursuing Tao Defiance to notice him. He continued flying towards the depths of the airflow. Suddenly, a weak light shone down from below through the airflow, and a world that was filled with haze and darkness appeared within Su Fong's field of vision, causing Su Fong to be both surprised and delighted. So long as he fled to the 10 Hell, then his chances of escaping pursuit would definitely increase greatly. Unexpectedly, one of his doppelgangers had suddenly lost contact with Su Fong, and it was very obvious that he'd been killed by one of the pursuing Tao Defiance. After that, his ability at perfection sensed once more that a black shadow with a faint aura had actually disregarded the shackles of the airflow, and it instantly flashed to less than 50 kilometers away from him. That black shadow didn't seem like a human, nor was it a devil. It was from a strange clan that had vanished in the annals of history a long time ago, the Shadow Clan. Su Fong had read about the Shadow Clan in some ancient books. The Shadow Clan was a strange clan that lived in the world of darkness, and they were skilled in concealment. It was said that so long as there was concealment, the Shadow Clan could fuse into yin and yang, and no one would be able to notice their tracks. So, the Shadow Clan was born to be assassins, and they'd once enjoyed a period of glory throughout the universe. But for some unknown reason, the Shadow Clan had never appeared again. He'd never expected that the Tao Defiance Alliance would actually have an Emperor Realm expert from the Shadow Clan. We're in big trouble now. The Shadow Clan's Emperor Realm expert arrived in an instant, and when he was 10 miles away from Su Fong, he blended into the darkness and disappeared without a trace. Su Fong used the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique to sense the aura of the Shadow Clan's Emperor Realm expert, but he soon found out in disbelief that the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique couldn't detect the slightest bit of destiny aura. Could the Shadow Clan's Emperor Realm expert be able to hide the aura of destiny? That's impossible. This Shadow Clan's expert must be too strong, and the gap between our strengths is too big, so he could avoid being sensed by the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique. While Su Fong was pondering, the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique and the Heaven's Divination Mystery Solutions ability to predict danger caused the Tao Runes of Destiny and the Heaven's Secret True Text to stir in the ocean inside his divine aperture again. Boom! Su Fong didn't hesitate to burst out the divine might of the world inside his body. It surged out from his body and immediately swept out towards the surroundings. Under the impact of Su Fong's divine might, A blurry black shadow floated out from the shadow behind Su Fang, broke through the divine might's shackles, and pounced towards Su Fang's body. It turned out that this Shadow Clan's expert didn't have the divine ability to avoid being sensed by the Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique. Instead, he blended himself into Su Fang's shadow, and at the same time, he blended into Su Fang's destiny aura. In addition, his aura was originally incomparably illusory, so Su Fang's Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique couldn't sense his existence. Su Fang was caught off guard, and the shadow actually broke through his defense and drilled into his body. His divine body instantly seemed to be covered by a layer of shadow, and it rapidly turned illusory. Chapter 2466. Su Fang's divine body was unknowingly infiltrated and invaded by the Shadow Clan expert. Then, a powerful force that could turn all living things into shadows rapidly turned them into shadows and was devoured by the Shadow Clan expert. Whoosh! A faint consciousness projection appeared in Su Fang's Dharma Power world. It spoke in a smug and ethereal voice. Su Fang, no matter how extraordinary you are only a Tao integration realm cultivator. How can you fight against me? You are trying to stop the supreme evil god. Your actions are no different from a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You will only be crushed into dust. After devouring you, I will not only have made a great contribution to the Tao Defiance Alliance, but my status in the alliance will also skyrocket. I will even gain the favor of the supreme evil god. Moreover, your life force is so vast. After devouring you, I might even have a breakthrough. Kakik, the Shadow Clan expert, was very smug and arrogant. All of this is just your imagination. You want to devour Su Fang? Aren't you afraid of your teeth breaking? Su Fang's essence spirit sneered. The Heaven Secret Life shrinking technique's Tao runes burned the essence spirit of the Shadow Clan expert to ashes. At the same time, a scarlet flame surged out from Su Fang's body. It wasn't an ordinary flame or the Nine Yang divine fire. It was Su Fang activating the Origin Sacred Mirror in his body. It released the Nine Yang true fire and merged with his body. In an instant, every inch of Su Fang's mortal body was swept up by the Nine Yang true fire. Wherever it went, the Shadow Clan powerhouses that were crazily devouring Su Fang's body immediately melted away like snow meeting a divine sun. Origin Sacred Mirror. Damn it. The Shadow Clan expert was scared out of his wits. He quickly left Su Fang's body and swept out. The Shadow Clan was a clan that lived in the shadows and darkness. The Nine Yang true fire was a supreme flame refined from the Nine divine suns. It was the Shadow Clan's fatal nemesis. How could the Shadow Clan expert not be afraid? That Shadow Clan expert had never imagined that Su Fang would have such a method to fuse the Nine Yang true flame with his body. Just as he was about to get carried away, he was incinerated by the Nine Yang true flame. Although it wasn't fatal, it still injured his origin chi. When he escaped from Su Fang's body, his shadow-like body became even more blurry. He flashed into the darkness. This Shadow Clan powerhouse had suddenly suffered such a big loss. In addition, the Nine Yang true fire released by the primordial sacred mirror had a restraining effect on him. He was so scared that he didn't dare to show his face again. If I didn't have the Origin sacred mirror, I wouldn't be able to escape. Although Su Fang's body, his heart was still filled with fear. Su Fang continued to fly in the depths of the airflow. In less than the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Su Fang suddenly felt that there was weight, and he fell down to the dark ground below. He hurriedly activated the power of the yin-yang world to stabilize himself. He looked. Due to the shackles of the Great Perfection Stage ability, Su Fang could only see about 100,000 miles in the sky. This was an independent sealed spacetime. The sky was covered in haze. Below him was a vast black material continent. The whole spacetime was cold and dark. Lightning flashed in the sky from time to time, illuminating the spacetime. The material continent was bare. There were also bulging mountain ranges. However, the mountain ranges were barren. No life could be seen on the ground. This place was a forbidden land for life. There were also no nether souls or nether monsters that could be seen everywhere in the 9 Netherlands. There were no threats like nether threads or soul-falling rain. However, the cold aura that filled this space-time was enough to freeze any life to death. Moreover, the cold aura also contained an extreme aura of death. It was as if he had arrived at the origin of death. Su Fang sensed the aura here. It was very similar to Mystery's. He was sure this was the 10 Netherlands where Mystery used to live. The crisis hadn't been resolved yet. Su Fang didn't dare to stay. He immediately took out the infinity wheel and flew to the deepest part of this spacetime. The Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Union will come here at any time. I'm seriously injured now. It'll be hard for me to escape. Su Fang glanced at his right arm that couldn't be healed. His heart sank. Seeing a deep canyon in the material continent, Su Fang pondered for a moment. He immediately put away the infinity wheel and flew into the canyon. He found a cave on a cliff. Su Fang flew into the cave. He isolated the aura with the life-shrinking technique and sealed the inside of the cave. Then, he created a formation inside the cave to isolate the cold aura. Su Fang sat down cross-legged inside the formation. He immediately started swallowing pills and spiritual items. He also activated the 9 Yang 9 transformations. He used his Yang Qi to expel the evil energy that demon sage Fu Sha's demonic saber light had infiltrated his body. After thinking for a while, Su Fang let Huang Lingyao out of the space inside the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda. He briefly told Huang Lingyao about being pursued by the Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance, and then he said, "I originally intended to let you leave once you recovered, but I never expected that we would be pursued all the way here. It'll probably be extremely dangerous from now on, and it can be said that we have a slim chance of survival. Stay here for now, and leave after I draw those Emperor Realm experts away." Huang Lingyao said coldly, "Where is this place in the 9 Serenities?" Su Fang said, "This is no longer the 9 Serenities. It's the place where the son of the heavenly Tao, who ruled the netherworld, lived. It's called the 10 Serenities." Huang Lingyao's eyes flashed coldly. "The 10 Serenities? Are you sure it's the 10 Serenities?" Huang Lingyao's expression made Su Fang have a bad feeling. He nodded and said, "Yes, this is the legendary 10 Serenities. Then you'd better wait for death." "Why?" "This sect master has records about the 10 Serenities in the inheritance of Emperor Mingyu. Emperor Mingyu once entered the 10 Serenities and came to meet the supreme expert of the 9 Serenities." Huang Lingyao said slowly. According to Emperor Mingyu's description, the 10 Serenities is an independent spacetime beyond the 9 Serenities. Without the permission of the supreme expert of the 9 Serenities, no one can enter or leave the 10 Serenities. In other words, the 10 Serenities is a sealed spacetime, isolated from the outside world. You can't escape. Not to mention you, even Emperor Ming, you can't do it. Huang Lingyao's words made Su Fang's heart turn cold. He still didn't give up. Then why was I able to break the space-time barrier and enter the 10 Serenities when I blew up the evil god flag? Maybe it's because after the 9 Serenities shattered, the natural barrier of the 10 Serenities also weakened. You blew up the evil god flag and happened to blow up this weak area. Now you're facing the pursuit of 6 emperors, and you're in a sealed space-time. How can you escape? Su Fang's heart sank into the abyss. He didn't expect that after escaping the pursuit with great difficulty, he would run into a dead end. Now he was like a turtle in a jar. The emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance would definitely be guarding the gap to enter the 10 Serenities. It was impossible to escape from there. With the strength of a supreme emperor, even if Su Fang had the ability to conceal the aura of destiny with the life-shrinking technique, they would find him sooner or later if they spent some time. There were definitely many weak areas in the natural barrier of the 10 Serenities. Su Fang was confident that with the Origin Sacred Mirror and Shu Wanjin working together, it wouldn't be difficult to break through a gap. However, how could the 6 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance give him a chance to find a weak area? Now he was completely in a hopeless situation. Depressed. All kinds of negative emotions shrouded Su Fang's heart. After a long silence, Su Fang let out a long breath, and his eyes became firm again. Since he couldn't change anything, he could only face it. He thought about it carefully. Then Su Fang stared at Huang Lingyao. "I've decided to fight to the death with the emperors of the Tao Defiant. I'll leave you here. After they leave, you'll have a chance to leave safely." Huang Lingyao looked at Su Fang with dead eyes. "You'll definitely die then. Why are you doing this?" "Since I'm going to die anyway, I have to die with some value. I have a condition for doing this." "What condition? Tell me. I have many subordinates and hundreds of millions of mortals in my inner world. I'll move them into my Dharma treasure space. Please take them out alive." There were hundreds of thousands of powerful big goblin experts in his Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. There were even more cultivators and mortals in the Builder Tree, reaching more than 140 million. Other than Su Yaotian, Xianlingzi, Shu Yunkong, and the others who stayed in the Sanctum of Sages, most of his friends and subordinates were there. How could Su Fang bear to let them die with him? Most importantly, Su Fang had to take his grandfather's soul away no matter what. Su Fang said in a deep voice, "I want you to promise me that you'll bring everyone to the Sky Beacon Divine World. Can you promise me that?" Huang Lingyao said indifferently, "I promise you." "That's good." Su Fang nodded and then took out 2 bottles. "I'll give you all of this condensation mysterious water and half of the soul marrow milk. I hope you can agree to my other condition." "You have a lot of conditions. Tell me." "Help me take care of my family. If I really die, those powerful big goblin experts under my command may not be reliable." "Okay. Thank you." While Su Fang was talking, a young soul entered his body. With a thought, the big goblin and experts in the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda all appeared in front of him. Su Fang slowly told the big goblin and experts about the desperate situation he was facing and his decision. "Master, let's fight it out with them. We have so many experts. Can't we defeat 6 Defiance?" A cultivator shouted. It was the realm lord of Han Shuo. His divine palace was destroyed by the Luo clan's experts, and he was crippled. It was Su Fang who pleaded with the sovereigns to help him recover. His son, young Master Han Shuo, was also trained by Su Fang. Naturally, he was loyal to Su Fang. "Let's fight!" All the big goblin and cultivators roared. Chapter 2467. Master! More than 100,000 big goblin and cultivators knelt in front of Su Fang in the air. All the cultivators couldn't help but cry out loud. Even the big goblin, who was known for being cruel and evil, had red eyes and couldn't help but cry. In the face of certain death, not only did he not treat his subordinates as cannon fodder, but he even sacrificed himself to win a chance for his subordinates to live. How could they not be grateful to have such a master? Next, Su Fang distributed the various resources in his hands to the big goblin and cultivators. Those subordinates in the creation would also receive a large amount of resources. As for his father, Xianlingzi, Shu Yunkong, and the others, as well as his relatives and friends who stayed in the Saint Temple to cultivate, Su Fang didn't leave too many resources for them. If Su Fang really died, the supreme existences of the imperial people wouldn't target his relatives and friends. However, if he left too many resources for his relatives and friends, not only would it not help them, but it would also attract the covetous eyes of countless experts, and it might even lead to a fatal disaster. The creation wood was still left in Su Fang's body for the same reason. If the creation wood was brought back, it would definitely cause a fight. Su Fang also carried the Origin Sacred Mirror, Ancestral Fiend Blood Plate, Universe Chariot, Heaven Supervisor Token, prison-suppressing codex, and other supreme treasures with him. The emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance were determined to get Su Fang's treasures, and they were also very clear about them. If one or two of them were missing, it would arouse their suspicion, and they would conduct a large-scale search in the Ten Nether. At that time, even Huang Lingyao wouldn't be able to leave and would be captured by the Tao Defiance Alliance. Su Fang also planned to let Huang Lingyao take Gui Gui and the dragon bird out. If they really died, they would stay by his father's side and be a powerful protective force. As for the life-bound magic treasure Xian Wang's Six Paths Pagoda, Su Fang originally wanted to take it away. However, the original soul of Xian Wang's Six Paths Pagoda would not agree no matter what. It could not bear to leave Su Fang, so Su Fang could only give up. Su Fang had originally intended to leave his clone and his origin divinity behind, but he had second thoughts. If he was really killed by the Imperial Exalted Emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance, then they would definitely utilize their supreme abilities to annihilate him. The peerless Supreme Sovereigns had too many skills. When they killed the true body, they could make the second Yuan Shun and the clone disappear at the same time. Even if they were separated by many dimensions, it would be difficult to escape the fate of being killed. After everything was arranged properly, Su Fang moved everyone on the Jianmu into the mobile world. That mobile world belonged to Jiwuji, and it could accommodate hundreds of millions of people. Su Fang rarely used it after that, but he didn't expect it to play such an important role now. Su Fang's grandfather's soul was placed inside the Dark Valley origin bead by Su Fang, and it continued to be nourished by the diluted soul marrow nether milk. The Dark Valley origin bead was useless to Su Fang, but it was more than enough to store his grandfather's soul. Then, he gave a few more jade slips to Wang Tian. Shi? Alliance? Di Jiao Shi? Shi? Huan Shi? Shi? Huan? Mu Tug Guzhen E Lai Jiao Lai Jiao Lai Jiao Lai Jiao Lai Jiao? Shi? Xuanxin was taken away by the mountain guardian. I wonder if he's dead now? If he succeeds, I'm afraid we won't meet again in this life. Thinking of Xuanxin, Su Fang's heart became heavy. Then, the figure of a black-clothed woman flashed in Su Fang's mind. It was Goddess Luo. He thought to himself, I can't find out the truth about the memories that were erased. After everything was arranged properly, Su Fang solemnly handed the mobile world to Huang Lingyao. Next, Su Fang created the time and time array. While cultivating and recovering, he began to use the heavens spinning destiny technique to deduce the future. In this desperate situation, he tried to deduce the heavenly secrets that belonged to him in order to find a chance of survival. Compared to looking back to the past, the cost of deducing the future was much smaller. It was still within the range that Su Fang could bear. The black and white yin-yang vortex kept spinning around Su Fang. Scenes of light and shadow kept appearing. Different decisions would lead to different results in the future. The light and shadow that was deduced from the black and white vortex would show different results. However, the results of the deductions made Su Fang completely give up. No matter what decision he made, the final result was the same. Su Fang could not escape the fate of being suppressed. The difference was that the Tao-defiant emperors that killed him and the way they died was different. Is my fate destined to be like this, who wouldn't be afraid in the face of death? No matter how tenacious Su Fang's Tao heart was, he knew that he was facing a situation of certain death. His heart became extremely heavy and was filled with despair and unwillingness. It seems that I can only resign myself to fate, Su Fang smiled bitterly. Then, he peeled off a yang spirit and entered the central spacetime of the origin sacred mirror. Xu Wanzhen's primordial spirit was sitting cross-legged in the central spacetime. She seemed to have expected Su Fang's arrival. Xu Wanzhen nodded and said, Su Fang, I already know why you're here. I obtained a part of Yu's power essence. After I became a Lord God in the Palace of Advent, my strength soared. With the help of the origin sacred mirror, I can keep my primordial spirit consciousness in the mirror for a long time. Your experience from the yin-yang heavenly wheel to the 10 underworlds is still vivid in my mind. Su Fang's young spirit looked ashamed. Senior sister, I've let you down. If I had known, I would have gone to the Palace of Advent first and tried to save you. Shu Wanjin said coldly, Do you regret it? Are you desperate? Su Fang answered truthfully, I don't regret it. In such a desperate situation, I'm naturally unwilling and desperate. Shu Wanjin suddenly smiled. You're finally acting like a normal person. Otherwise, even I would feel that you're becoming less and less like a human. Su Fang was shocked and stunned. Senior sister, you're still joking with me at such a time? Is it really a desperate situation? It's not like that. It's just that you're trapped and can't see clearly. Su Fang was stunned. Senior sister, you mean, there's still hope? Su Fang, you're really muddle-headed. Have you forgotten why you entered the 9 underworlds? Su Fang's young spirit frowned and said, I went to the 9 underworlds to kill the heavenly fire divine lord and get his purple chi dharma spirit. I also wanted to find the nether sand and the 9 underworlds embryo stone. As Su Fang spoke to hear, he suddenly realized something. No, there is an even greater goal. The reason I left Primordius' heavenly palace and entered the battlefield of the 2 realms was also for this goal. I understand. The next moment, Su Fang was in high spirits. Why did he leave the Yuan Tiangong? Wasn't it to find an opportunity to break through to the king god level? Before entering the 9 underworlds, Su Fang had already found a way to break through. It was just that he didn't have time to try it before he came to the 9 underworlds. After entering the 9 underworlds, he encountered dangers one after another. He didn't have the time and energy to try to break through to the king god level. The way he comprehended to become a king god was to be reborn after death, to be broken and then to stand again. He used death to sever the karma with the heavenly Tao and transcend heaven and earth. Shu Wanjin shouted coldly, Su Fang, forget your original intention. This is a taboo in cultivation. Don't think that you've lost the heart of a cultivator just because you have the strength to kill a venerable sovereign. If that's the case, even if you have great luck, you won't be able to be reborn after death. Like a wake-up call, Su Fang's young spirit trembled, but his heart was suddenly enlightened. Senior sister, thank you for reminding me. Su Fang will never make such a mistake again. Su Fang's young spirit bowed deeply to Shu Wanjin and then slowly left. Since it's a dead-end situation, I'll take advantage of this opportunity to seek rebirth from death, sever the karma with the heavenly Tao, and reshape Su Fang's own heavenly Tao. Su Fang's eyes were filled with decisiveness and determination. Although no matter what decision I make, I will still die no matter where I go, but I still have to choose carefully. Next, Su Fang thought for a while and decided to go to the most dangerous place he had deduced before. The more dangerous a place was, the greater the opportunity hidden in it. After deducing again and again, Su Fang found the most dangerous place and then made a decision. The more dangerous a place was, the greater the chance of survival it contained. Huang Lingyao, I'll leave everything to you. Su Fang cupped his fists to Huang Lingyao and then passed through the formation without hesitation and left the cave. QL11 looking at Su Fang's back, Huang Lingyao's emotionless eyes flashed with a strange light. Although they were still cold and dead, there was a different kind of expression. As soon as he left the cave, Su Fang immediately activated the infinity wheel and flew towards the central area of the 10 serenities. He flew for about 10 million miles. A violent and ferocious aura swept across Su Fang's body, followed by a shocking roar. Su Fang, let's see where you can escape to this time. As soon as the voice fell, a big man in a green robe came over step by step. In a flash, he was 100 miles away from Su Fang and threw out a round wheel magic weapon. Fangs stretched out from the inside of this round wheel, and as soon as they appeared, They quickly grew to 1,000 feet in size and erupted with astonishing shackling power. Moreover, as the round wheel spiraled, it released a terrifying tearing force and fell on Su Fong. This big man in a green robe was a resurrected big goblin. His strength was obviously much weaker than Demon Saint Fu Sha, and he was not as strange as the Shadow Clan expert. However, he had an extremely powerful death weapon, which was almost equivalent to a semi-divine creation weapon. After being activated by the big goblin, even Demon Saint Fu Sha would have to avoid it. Get lost! Su Fong shouted domineeringly and operated the purple chi law spirit. Mysterious purple chi soared into the sky, causing the round wheel to tremble and buzz, and its power decreased greatly. While the big man in a green robe was surprised, Su Fong's figure flashed. Not only did he not escape, but he pounced on the big man in a green robe. "You're courting death." The big man in a green robe sneered ferociously, revealing his sharp fangs. Evil demon chi rose to the sky and instantly turned into demon fire, enveloping Su Fong and his surroundings, forming a world of blazing demon fire. Ancestor Demon Blood Plate. Su Fong did not hesitate to activate the Ancestor Demon Blood Plate. Dark demon chi swept out from the blood plate, and the powerful soul power of an ordinary Emperor Realm expert burst out like a tidal wave. Chapter 2468. The green-robed man was attacked by the ancestral fiend Blood Plate's divine might. His divine orifices shook as he screamed, and his monstrous demonic flames instantly vanished. At that moment, Su Fong took out the Origin Sacred Mirror. It was very difficult for the Prison Suppressing Codex and the Heaven Supervisor token to suppress a revived great sage of the demon race who was comparable to an emperor. Only the Origin Sacred Mirror had the ability to do so. Su Fong had already hardened his heart and was prepared to die, so he might as well kill one more emperor of the Tao Defiance Alliance before he died. The revived great sage of the demon race deserved his bad luck for being the first to encounter Su Fong. Su Fong was prepared to die, and he just so happened to have the ancestral fiend blood plate that could suppress the big goblin's divine might. Under the ancestral fiend blood plate's divine might attack, the green-robed man's consciousness became blurry. "You want to kill me, Su Fong? You think I'm a weak chicken that you can slaughter. But you'll never imagine that I, Su Fong, can kill you, a peerless emperor, as if I'm killing a chicken." Su Fong sneered domineeringly as he aimed the scarlet mirror at the green-robed big goblin. The Yang soul inside the Origin Sacred Mirror and Shu Wanjin used the Four Symbols transformation to activate the Origin Sacred Mirror. The Origin Sacred Mirror's two yin and yang fishes constantly spiraled on its surface as the yin and yang constantly changed. In the end, the mirror's surface transformed into a boundless universe. An eternal cycle of the heavenly Tao's four symbols constantly changed on the mirror's surface. Qi. The mirror shot out a red and black Xian Guang that instantly enveloped the green-robed man. The green-robed man had just awakened from the ancestral fiend blood plate's divine might when he sensed the Origin Sacred Mirror's terrifying might that could turn everything in the world into a state of chaos. He was instantly frightened out of his wits. Roar! Roar! The green-robed man let out a roar and transformed into his true form, the green wolf. Demonic flames burned crazily on his body as he waved his sharp claws, exploding with a terrifying power that could tear the sky apart. However, beneath the might of the primordious holy mirror, all of this resurrected monster race great saint's efforts were in vain. Not only did its ferocious attacks fail, but even its monster energy and mortal body rapidly collapsed and disintegrated, returning to a state of nothingness where it was absorbed by the universe formed by the primordious holy mirror. On the surface of the mirror, the transformation of the four symbols quickly stopped and turned into a mirror state that was as vast and clear as the starry sky. On the surface of the mirror, a lifelike image of the big goblin green wolf appeared. Then, it separated from the mirror and floated in front of Su Fong. It was exactly the same as before. Even its aura was the same. However, in front of Su Fang, it was no longer as arrogant and violent as before. Instead, it stood there like an obedient dog. Its eyes were dull, and it had lost its previous consciousness. Yin-yang transformation. It crushed everything and reverted back to its original state, turning into innate chaos chi. The four divisions transformation was a reconstruction. Regardless of whether it was matter, divine abilities, life, or Tao defiance, it could be replicated. That was how domineering it was to utilize the primordious holy mirror with the four divisions transformation. The resurrected monster race Great Saint returned to its original state, and then he was reconstructed within the mirror. After the reconstruction, the resurrected monster race Great Saint was naturally no longer the Tao defiant from before, and it was a puppet under Su Fang's control. Su Fang staggered. He had joined forces with Xu Wanjun to execute the transformations of four divisions. Activating the Origin Sacred Mirror was the most powerful technique he had grasped at the moment. Although its power was incomparably shocking, its consumption was also proportional to its power. Even though he hadn't been completely drained of his energy, utilizing the primordious holy mirror this time had exhausted most of Su Fang's energy. Coupled with the fact that his injuries from before were far from healed, Su Fang was in a rather bad situation right now. Being able to kill an Emperor Realm expert of the Tao Defiance Alliance before I die is a worthy death. Haha. Not to mention that my death isn't true death. Using the primordious holy mirror to kill the resurrected monster race Great Saint isn't enough. I can use it to kill another Emperor Realm expert of the Tao Defiance Alliance. Only then would it be worth it. Su Fang chuckled, and a savage and cold smile appeared on his exhausted face. He sent a thought to the resurrected monster race Big Goblin. Suck me into the world within your belly and head to that place. The Big Goblin opened its mouth and sucked Su Fang into its belly, and then it immediately transformed into human form and tore through the wind towards the depths of the 10 underworlds under the guidance of Su Fang's thoughts. Su Fang sat cross-legged within the Big Goblin's belly, and he was wantonly devouring pills and treasures to recover while paying attention to everything outside through the Big Goblin's eyes. About 6 hours later, a dark palace appeared in the Big Goblin's sight, and Su Fang sensed it. The palace was simple and unadorned, and it exuded a powerful yet eerie and cold aura. However, the outer side palaces had all been reduced to rubble, and even the main palace was broken in many places. This palace that is about to collapse should be where you used to live. I'll choose to die here, Su Fang speculated in his heart, and then he sent a thought to the resurrected monster race Big Goblin. Suddenly, a divine light flashed in front of him, and it quickly condensed into a middle-aged man in a red robe. It was one of the resurrected emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance. Qing Wei, why didn't you reply when I contacted you? Have you found the traces of that human, Su Fang? The middle-aged man's cold eyes swept over the large man in the green robe as he spoke. There was doubt in his deep eyes, and it was obvious that he was suspicious of the large man in the green robe. This saint has already suppressed Su Fang. The middle-aged man in the green robe spoke indifferently, and then he opened his mouth and spat out Su Fang from the world in his stomach. The middle-aged man in the red robe was instantly pleasantly surprised when he saw Su Fang, and he placed all his attention on Su Fang. It really is Su Fang. Qing Wei, your luck is really heaven-defying. You actually captured Su Fang. You've obtained the first merit. The middle-aged man clicked his tongue with admiration, and he looked at Su Fang as if he was looking at a weak chicken that was waiting to be slaughtered. Unexpectedly, something unexpected happened right at this moment. The large man in the green robe suddenly attacked without any warning. He waved his hand and struck out with a wolf claw that was fierce, and it attacked the middle-aged man fiercely. His QL-11 the wolf claw tore apart the middle-aged man's red robe. However, the robe was actually a saint artifact with extraordinary defensive capabilities, and it actually blocked most of the wolf claw's attack. A bloody groove appeared on the middle-aged man's right arm. The middle-aged man was shocked and furious. "Qing Wei, you actually dare to attack this emperor? Could it be that you think this emperor will snatch your merit?" He never imagined that the large man in the green robe was already under Su Fang's control, and he thought that the large man in the green robe was worried that he would snatch the merit, so he attacked him. Right at this moment, Su Fang made a move as well. He waved his hand and the Heaven Supervisor token erupted with the energy of the Heavenly Tao's order, and numerous chains of order extended towards the middle-aged man with the intention of shackling him. "Qing Wei, you actually colluded with Su Fang." The middle-aged man finally reacted and exclaimed loudly, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. This person was a supreme sovereign after all, and Su Fang was unable to shackle him with the Heaven Supervisor token, and it only caused him some trouble. The large man in the green robe took the opportunity to launch a fierce attack at the middle-aged man. After a shocking roar, he immediately transformed into a huge wolf that was 3,000 meters long. His entire body emitted a green demonic aura, and he opened his bloody mouth and bit fiercely at the middle-aged man. His space was torn apart, and it felt as if the entire world was about to be swallowed by the green wolf. The middle-aged man was disrupted by Su Fang's Heaven Supervisor token's chains of order, and it was difficult for him to dodge the green wolf's terrifying attack. He could only erupt with divine power and quickly condense into jade-green vines that rose up and propped up a world. However, he was still half a beat too late. The green wolf bit off more than half of the vines, and before the world could form, it instantly shattered. The middle-aged man's body was also about to be swallowed by the green wolf. At this critical moment, the middle-aged sovereign had no choice but to use the method of a gecko cutting off its tail. He released a sharp finger between his eyebrows and actually disintegrated his divine body, releasing his yang spirit to escape. Before the green wolf's big mouth could land, the middle-aged man's yang spirit broke out of his shell, and with a speed that surpassed the green wolf's attack, he instantly escaped into the void and fled 100,000 kilometers away. It's a pity that I couldn't kill this person. However, his divine body was destroyed. Although he didn't die, his vitality was greatly damaged. Su Fang felt a wave of regret, and then he jumped onto the back of the huge green wolf and was carried by the green wolf towards the palace. Suddenly the sky instantly turned dark. Monstrous demonic qi covered more than half of the sky, and a divine might enveloped Su Fang and the green wolf, forming a shocking shackle that restricted the green wolf's speed. Su Fang was shocked. "Oh no, that demon saint of the Tao Defiance is attacking. Su Fang, you've really shocked me. You can actually suppress a demon saint of the Tao Defiance Alliance, and make him submit to your control." Demon Saint Fu Sha's shocked voice reverberated in the sky. "Fortunately, you're definitely going to die this time. Otherwise, you'll definitely become a great threat to the Tao Defiance Alliance in the future." As soon as Demon Saint Fu Sha finished speaking, he activated his demonic saber and slashed it down at Su Fang and the Green Wolf. "Even if I die, I'll take the sovereign of the Tao Defiance Alliance down with me," Su Fang shouted domineeringly. The green wolf below him let out a long howl, shattering the demonic qi shackles around it, and then it rose up against the demonic qi saber light. Boom! 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 The green wolf's claws shattered the demonic qi saber light, but one of its claws was also cut off. However, it charged into the sky fearlessly and started a life-and-death battle with Demon Saint Fu Sha. Su Fang erupted with the divine might of the yin-yang world, charged out of the shattered shackles, and instantly teleported to the top of the dilapidated palace. Su Fang die. Two more figures flashed out of the void and charged at Su Fang from the left and right. Of the 6 sovereign of the Tao Defiance Alliance who had chased Su Fang to the 10 underworlds, Besides the Shadow Clan expert who had been severely injured by Su Fang's 9-yang true fire, the other 5 sovereign-level peerless experts had all arrived. The 2 sovereign of the Dao Defiance Alliance looked at Su Fang, and a terrifying heavenly Dao phenomenon surged in their eyes. Numerous illusory figures appeared in the sky and instantly turned into real worlds that crushed down on Su Fang. Facing 2 peerless sovereign, even if Su Fang was in peak condition, it would be difficult for him to contend against them without the Origin Sacred Mirror, let alone in his current injured and weak state. At this moment, an incomparably vast and cold aura shot into the sky from the dilapidated palace and swept out in all directions. Chapter 2469. The extremely cold aura swept out like the river of the 9 underworld. Not only did it dissolve the attacks of the 2 Dao Defiance, it even shackled them and wanted to freeze them to death, causing them to fall into the cycle of reincarnation. Sensing this aura, Su Fang fell into a state of intense shock. Waves seemed to have surged in his heart. Shroud's clone. No, even if Shroud's clone was at his peak state, he couldn't possibly possess such powerful strength. Why is that? A black-clothed man slowly rose into the sky from the shattered palace. It was Shroud's clone. Su Fang used his full circle ability and the life-shrinking technique to sense Shroud's clone. Su Fang could sense the aura of the Origin Sacred Mirror from the black-clothed man. It was indeed Shroud's clone and not his true body. After Shroud's true body broke free from the shackles of the Prison Suppression Codex, he followed the river of the Heavenly Tao and went straight to the source of the Heavenly Tao. Perhaps he had already entered the exalted Celestial Mountain. Why did Shroud's clone possess such powerful strength now? It had already surpassed ordinary venerable sovereigns and was on par with the supreme existences of the imperial people. Su Fang sensed carefully and found that Shroud's clone seemed to have fused with the 10 underworlds. At this moment, he seemed to have become the embodiment of the 10 underworlds. Su Fang immediately came to a realization. It turned out that Shroud's clone had borrowed the power of the 10 underworlds to possess such astounding strength. I didn't expect Shroud's clone to come directly to the 10 underworlds after I released him in the River of Nether. It just so happens that he's protecting me. I can calmly execute my technique to sever the karma of the Heavenly Tao and transcend the universe. Then, I can break through the shackles and become an over-god. My unintentional action at that time actually played such a huge role now. This should be the supreme luck that the purple cloud Dharma spirit brought to me. Su Fang was pleasantly surprised and immediately ordered Shroud's clone, "Guard the palace and protect me." "Yes." Shroud's clone replied coldly. Su Fang flew to the ruins in front of the palace, and then his figure flashed into the palace. The 2 emperors of the Dao Defiance Alliance who were restrained by Shroud's clone had utilized their own worlds to shatter the cold shackles and charge towards Shroud's clone. Up in the skies, Devil Sage Fuming Evil finally managed to slay the resurrected Green Wolf after paying a huge price and sustaining heavy injuries. With a single step, he instantly traversed through space and appeared above the palace. A beam of demonic light shot out from Devil Saint Fu Sha's eyes, transforming into a demonic blade with astonishing power that slashed down at the palace. Crack! QL11 The demonic Chi saber light slashed down on the palace. Who would have thought that the dilapidated palace would automatically emit an icy cold light, causing the palace to fuse with the 10 underworld? Devil Sage Fuming Evil's strike seemed to have landed on the power of the 10 underworlds. Not only did the attack fail to damage the palace in the slightest, but it even shattered the demonic saberlight. Even Devil Sage Fuming Evil was swept away by the force of the impact. His body staggered, and he was nearly sent flying. What a strange palace! However, Su Fang is like a turtle in a jar right now, and it's impossible for him to escape the 10 underworlds no matter what. I just have to kill that black-clothed man, and Su Fang won't be a problem anymore. Devil Sage Fuming Evil stopped attacking the palace, and he charged towards Shroud's clone with the other 2 emperors of the Dao Defiance Alliance. Shroud's clone wasn't even at the Emperor realm right now, but his main body was a supreme ruler of the netherworld. He was like the Heaven Tao in the 10 underworlds, and he was able to draw upon the energy of the entire 10 underworlds to fight 3 emperors of the Tao Defiance Alliance at the same time. Not only was he not in a disadvantaged position, he was even suppressing them. An unprecedented battle was being carried out in the 10 underworld. Su Fong entered the palace and looked over. Jade-green flames floated above the palace, and he was barely able to see the scenery within the palace by relying on the light. The palace was extremely spacious, dark, and ghastly. It emanated pure nether death energy and cold aura, and it seemed like an enormous coffin. Many pillars in the palace had collapsed, and the ground was covered in fragments. Even a throne on a high platform in the depths of the palace had been shattered. I wonder what happened to Shroud all those years ago. Since he's already transcended the heavens and the earth, and is the son of a heavenly exalt, then why was he shackled by a heavenly exalt? Why did a heavenly exalt not hesitate to absorb the essence of the 9 underworlds to refine the chaos divine mirror? Su Fong's heart was filled with bewilderment when he saw the scene before him. Perhaps I'll find the answer to everything once I enter the exalted celestial mountain and understand the truth behind the upheaval of the heavens and the earth. Next, I should prepare for death. When he thought about how he actually had to prepare for death, Su Fong couldn't help but chuckle, and the fear he had towards death instantly lessened greatly. After arriving at the high platform in the depths of the palace, Su Fong cleaned up all the fragments on it, and then he used the Heaven Supervisor token as the core of the formation to condense layers of restrictions around the high platform and form a formidable defensive barrier. With the Heaven Supervisor token as the core of the formation, even an Emperor Realm expert like Devil Sage Fuming Evil wouldn't be able to break through the defensive barrier in a short period of time. Su Fong sat down cross-legged on the high platform. Su Fong closed his eyes, and the scripture of the Battle of the Great Tao flowed through his mind, causing his heart to quickly calm down. Then, Su Fong recalled all the people and things he'd experienced since the moment he could remember them as a child, from the small world to the large world, and then to the various worlds. He recalled all the joys and sorrows of separation and reunion. The past was like smoke. Gradually, Su Fong's Tao heart became transcendent, and his Tao heart entered a state of emptiness and purity, as if he'd returned to the state of a fetus. Just as Su Fong was preparing to break through to the Overgod realm, another great change occurred outside the palace. Shroud's clone controlled the world energy of the 10 underworlds to repel Devil Sage Fuming Evil and the other 2 Emperor Realm experts of the Tao Defiance Alliance time and time again. Devil Sage Fuming Evil was burning with anxiety. He hadn't expected that such an expert would appear just as he was about to kill Su Fong. If Su Fong was allowed to escape again, the consequences would be unimaginable. He'd originally thought that since Su Fong had fled to the 10 underworlds, he wouldn't be able to hide or flee, and he would be slaughtered by the Tao Defiance Alliance in the end. Never had he imagined that such a situation would occur. If this continued, then they wouldn't be able to kill Su Fong, and they would have no choice but to return in defeat. As expected of the former Nether ruler, a mere clone was actually able to stop the footsteps of 3 Emperor Realm experts of my Tao Defiance Alliance. A cold and faint voice resounded from the void, and then a ray of green light flashed and swiftly condensed into a green figure. It was a middle-aged man in an emerald green robe. He had 2 slanted brows, a hooked nose, and a chiseled face. Even though his eyes were closed tightly, he emanated a supreme, imposing aura that transcended the heavens and the earth. As soon as this person appeared, his divine might immediately covered the heavens and the earth, and it cut off the connection between Shroud's clone and the 10 underworlds. It was like the supreme ruler of the 10 underworlds had descended. Devil Sage Fuming Evil and the other 2 Emperor Realm experts were instantly pleasantly surprised, and they immediately knelt towards the green-robed man. "Greetings, Alliance Master." This person was the unshackled clone of the Tao Defiant. Merely a clone possessed such a shocking imposing aura, and it was obvious how shocking the strength of the Tao Defiant's main body was. 9 great Emperor Realm experts pursued a mere Tao integration realm cultivator. What happened in the end? 3 pieces of trash are trapped in the illusory nightmare world. 2 are heavily injured, and 1 has become a puppet under Su Fang's control. Only the 3 of you are unharmed amongst the 9 great emperors. Is it because Su Fang is too strong, or is it because all of you are too useless? If it wasn't for the fact that this alliance master didn't have any capable subordinates, then I would have devoured all of you a long time ago. The green-robed man spoke in a cold and embarrassed tone. We are useless. Alliance Master, please punish us. Devil Saint Fu Sha and the other 2 Tao Defiants were trembling and filled with terror. The Tao Defiance Alliance gazed at Shroud's clone and spoke in a dignified voice. I've personally descended here, so why aren't you moving aside? Do you really want me to personally kill you before you're willing to give up? Kill! A strand of divine might erupted from Shroud's clone, and it broke through the shackles of the Tao Defiance Alliance's divine might. It instantly merged with the 10 underworlds, and then it strode forward like a black bolt of lightning as it charged towards the Tao Defiance Alliance. If it was the Nether Ruler's main body from all those years ago, then I would have immediately retreated. It's just a clone, so how could it dare to fight his main body? The Tao Defiance Alliance snorted disdainfully at Shroud's clone, and then his eyes suddenly opened before a strand of green light shot out violently. Swish! The green light transformed into a jade-green arrow that tore through space and dispersed the coldness of the 10 underworld. The monstrous imposing aura of Shroud's clone was penetrated by this arrow, and it collapsed layer by layer. In the end, the arrow struck its chest and blasted it into pieces. Devil Sage Fuming Evil and the other 2 Emperor Realm experts were pleasantly surprised by this scene. Unexpectedly, Shroud's clone condensed once more in the next moment, and it charged fearlessly towards the Tao Defiance Alliance's leader once more. The Tao Defiance Alliance's slanted brows raised. An undying body? It's slightly troublesome now. Shroud's clone was formed from Shroud's blood that had been duplicated by the Chaos Divine Mirror. Moreover, this was the 10 underworlds, so it was very difficult to kill Shroud's clone unless they severed his connection with the Chaos Divine Mirror and the 10 underworlds. Quickly head over and kill Su Fang. Only now did the Tao Defiance Alliance's leader realize that it was actually so difficult to kill Su Fang. He immediately issued orders to Devil Sage Fuming Evil and the other 2 Emperor Realm experts while he entered into battle with Shroud's clone. Yes, Devil Sage Fuming Evil led the other 2 Emperor Realm experts to swiftly charge into the palace. Shroud's clone was locked in battle with the Tao Defiance Alliance's leader, so he was unable to pay any attention to Su Fang. Su Fang sensed Devil Sage Fuming Evil's arrival from within the barrier, and a wisp of a cold smile that was filled with ridicule arose on the corners of his mouth before he closed his eyes once more. Violet Energy Dharma Spirit Fuse. Su Fang was the first to completely fuse the Violet Energy Dharma Spirit with his body. At the same time, the supreme karmic luck provided by the Violet Energy Dharma Spirit had fused with the imperceptible destiny. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I want to live, the heavens can't seize it from me. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I want to live, the heavens can't live without me. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I'm destroyed, then everything is shattered. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I live forever, then I'm eternal. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I live forever, then the heavens and the earth shake. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If I rule, then the myriad of worlds submit to me. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If the heavens punish me, then I defy the heavens. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. If the earth buries me, then I destroy the earth. The fortune of destiny controls the workings of the heavens. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There's no me. The life shrinking technique. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There's no me.